Today's episode of The Culture War is almost not brought to you by Outback Steakhouse because they gave me food poisoning and I was like barfing and I feel miserable. So thanks for that. You know, it really was delicious though, just not worth it. But we're here and we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. So we're hanging out with Mary Morgan and Chase Sovereign Brah. What is it? What is that Sovereign Brah?
I'm just a California bra that's trying to achieve sovereignty, you know?
And you're not gay.
And I am not gay.
So you had this viral clip from the Whatever podcast where these women got really angry and stormed off because you said you didn't want to have sex with a trans person because they're dudes.
Yep.
So my question for you, just to start the show off, is would you rather have sex with Hulk Hogan with a vagina or like
it was Megan Fox.
Megan
with
Fox
a penis,
with a dick.
Yeah.
In this scenario,
Right away. YouTube, there you go. 30 seconds in.
do I have a gun to my head? I have to make the choice.
I mean,
because if so, I'd rather take the bullet. I don't want either of those options.
See that, and that's exactly
totally fair.
That's what I was saying, because this viral clip from Andrew Tate, where he's like, "Bro, you're not listening. I'm saying like a woman who looks like Hulk Hogan, bro, he'll mess you up. Or Megan Fox, you could move it around." And I'm like, why would you choose either? If somebody wants to bang Hulk Hogan with a vagina, that's all them. I don't care. That's none of my business, but I'm not going to do it. That's why it's crazy they got so mad at you because you were like, I don't want to have sex with a man. And they were like, how dare you? I'm like, what do you mean, how dare you? Leave me alone, dude. I don't want to bang a dude.
You know, the part that got them really angry was that I said it would be homosexual. That was the part that made them really pissed. But it literally
would be.
Yes.
And that's not a drag on trans people.
Yes.
A trans woman is a male person. I got no beef. That's just they're males. If you want to argue social constructs and all that stuff. Anyway, so for those that are like, what the hell is going on already? The context is that was like this viral clip you had where this woman's like, you can't say that. That's wrong or whatever, and like storms out. And so
she's Rage Quit Kiko, right?
Yes.
That's her name?
Yes.
Rage Quit Kiko.
What I didn't understand about that clip is why is a biological woman out here caping for trans women?
Because she's
so
actually
hard.
No.
Do you think Kiko's
out of respect, she said she's a biological woman. I believe her.
Okay.
But I think the reason why they're like going to bat for it is because like this like leftist ideology of like you have to defend all things LGBTQ. It's like a religion to them.
Yeah, it's a cult.
Yeah.
We were talking about this a lot this past week, the definition of wokeness. And it's like, this woman, everyone's like, oh, it's postmodernism, it's cultural Marxism, it's her Marcuse and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, that lady who wanted you to bang a dude does not know who any of those people are.
Yep.
Does not understand any of that ideology. All she knows is that she must say what she is told to say. And whatever the left is changes every year. Because like a couple of years ago, the whole thing was critical race theory. Now it's all about transgender. And the weirdest thing to me is that she got mad because you were just outright like, it would be homosexual for me to sleep with a male. And she's like, how dare you?
Yep.
Like, wait a minute, man. 10 years ago, we were all on board with the idea that you couldn't choose your sexuality. Now they're like demanding that you have sex with a male person.
I mean, now tolerance, which is what they think is the only Christian value, is who you have sex with.
That's the funny thing too. Like, you have to give someone else what they want, or you're bigoted. You're not allowed. You are not allowed to have your preferences. They are allowed to have theirs.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what I find interesting about that conversation too is if you watch the full podcast. So for the people listening, for context, we're talking about Whatever Dating Podcast, episode 33. And multiple times throughout that podcast, like I would say that I disagreed with something or come off as like judgmental. And she'd be like, and that's coming from the Christian man, as if Christians aren't allowed to pass any sort of judgment on degeneracy in culture. She kept trying to use that over and over again. She was like, really? As a Christian, you're going to say that it's homosexual? You're going to say that it's gay? That's fucked up, Chase. And it's like, look, it's literally what the Bible says.
It's so obtuse because like her only concept of Christianity, Christian moral compass,
is people just being walked all over. The moral precepts that we follow
is like, yes, being walked all over, being nice.
Yes, that's what they think Christianity is.
But it's all about being nice, being tolerant, and not having a problem with anybody else's actions.
But you guys are forgetting in Leviticus where it said, that the Lord prescribeth you have sex with a man who looks like a woman. Right. And so that's a core moral value of Christianity.
That's what I told her. I quoted Genesis 5:2, where it says God made them male and female. Right. Yeah. It says right there in Genesis 5:2, he made them male and female. He called them mankind. And then in Leviticus, it specifically says, if a man lies with a male as he would with a female, it is an abomination and detestable in the eyes of the Lord.
Well, they've even twisted that to say, well, actually, if you look at this niche translation and interpretation, then it's actually referring to pedophilia, which even they condone now. But she is not interested in understanding what you believe as a Christian. She is interested in using it as a weapon against you.
You guys got it all wrong. If a man lies with a man as he would a woman, it's basically saying bros before hoes. Don't lie to your bros, dude. It's saying lie, not lies. Oh. It's like, when you got the lady, you're going to lie to her and be like, yeah, me and the boys, we were just working all night and you're actually out bowling or whatever. It's saying like, bros before hoes. That's what it's really saying. No, but that being said, I don't much care for, I don't think it's a legitimate argument that we follow all the rules and laws of Leviticus, because there's a ton of stuff in Leviticus nobody follows.
Well, it's also
Christians don't follow all of those rules.
Yeah,
it's part of the Mosaic Old Covenant. We're not supposed to follow all the rules.
Right. I don't much care for the religious component of it, but I get it. People do. My thing is more like 10 years ago, the whole narrative was that you couldn't choose your sexuality. It was just it is what it is. But now they're arguing if a dude looks like a chick enough, and it's like, look, man, I got to be honest. I got no beef with trans people. None whatsoever. But they'll call me transphobic anyway. Even when I'm like, live your life, do what you want to do as long as you're an adult or whatever. But I'm going to be honest. I don't believe there's such thing as a passing trans person. I'm not saying to be mean.
I agree.
No,
There's a handful of trans people that many of us probably know, some that we're friends with, and I want to keep bringing up people's names, that very close to passing. But it's like,
Well, the whole trans thing, what it's always been about is controlling how other people in society perceive you so that you can be treated a certain way. If you're biologically male, you want to be understood and treated in society like a woman would be. It's always been about other people's perception of you, not just living your life in a vacuum. They have to control what other people say about them. It's always been that.
Let me clarify. I do think some trans people pass in that context. What I mean to say is I don't think there is a trans person that I would find attractive. That's just me personally. That's what I mean to say. Because I've certainly seen some like older trans people, and it's like when you get to a certain age, then it's kind of, I've seen women with mustaches, you know what I mean? And then there are some trans people that are like very, very close to looking and acting just like a woman, but the voice is always different. The shoulders are always broader. The hips are always narrower.
And that's after you spend like tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on procedures to cosmetically change how you look.
Yeah, there's still that uncanny valley where you look at the person and you're like, I know you're a dude.
Right. And again, like, I'm not saying this to be mean to anybody, but I'm also not going to lie to them. That's the weirdest thing. They want you to just lie to people. And that's one of the biggest issues. All of these, you had these detransition forums, and you had these like transition opposition stuff where they're like, hey, don't do this to yourself. They're getting banned and shut down. So if kids are going online and the only thing they see is, it's great, it's the best thing in the world, everyone will be attracted to you, they're going to go for it. They're going to be like, but if they actually got to hear the detransitioner stories, the horrifying stories, they might reconsider it. There's a viral clip of this trans man, biological female, walking up to the camera. I did a segment about it. And they're like, I don't understand why I got misgendered. Like, I'm a man. Like, I think I look like a man. I even cut off my tits. And I'm like, I can tell you're female, dude. You have wide hips and you have an effeminate face and the ridge of like.
And the voice is unmistakable.
Unmistakably female.
The human brain just makes so many micro calculations when you look at somebody. You can't avoid knowing what biological sex they are. You're programmed to perceive that.
And sometimes it's not the case. Like there are circumstances where some guys or some women don't notice, but overwhelmingly,
maybe if the person was on puberty blockers in childhood.
Not even in that regard. Like, I look at Jazz Jennings and I'm like, I can tell that's a dude. It looks like a Jazz Jennings. And again, Try to be very careful because I'm not trying to be mean to anybody, but I think Jazz just looks like a little boy. Does not look like an adult female human.
The problem there is like Jazz is one of the very first that they started pushing as a child activist, and so that people would watch this TLC show and think like this is normal, you know, these parents are just trying to let their kid live authentically to themselves, and it was one of the first that people started accepting. But the trans stuff is how a lot of people are going to start jumping off.
Jumping off what?
Yeah, jumping ship on this whole woke thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Like cutting off
we can
kids'
see
balls.
it happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that like now kids are being mutilated, there's a lot of people that are like, this is my line. Like if you keep pushing, people are going to get really, really mad.
Even with Jazz, like I don't think Jazz got the gender reassignment surgery, the bottom surgery, until turning 18.
17, minor.
Okay, 17.
Jazz was a minor.
Well,
but even then, it's
and so
like
was Kim Petras.
Even if you wait until Kim Petras too. Even if you wait until 18 or closer to 18, you've still been groomed your entire life by your Munchausen's parents to think that this is normal. So it's not consensual.
That's my biggest beef with it. Like I debate people about the whole trans thing in Twitter Spaces all the time, and like the number one point I bring up is kids are so freaking impressionable, especially before the age of 10. And you've got all these like woke teachers in kindergarten and second grade that are telling kids about gender fluidity and all this stuff. And it's like, kids are almost a blank slate when they're at that young age. Like kids, I believed in Santa Claus until I was 8 years old. You know what I'm saying?
That's a long time.
Yeah. I was devastated when I found out he wasn't real. And my parents sold it really well. But like kids they're so impressionable at that young age, and they especially listen to authority figures. And when you have teachers telling you, yeah, like you can be a girl if you're a boy, or you can be a boy if you're a girl, they hear that. And it just like so deeply sinks into their mind, and it's very predatory behavior in my opinion. And I think that's that's the biggest problem is like then these kids hear that, and then they jump on hormones and stuff that like irreversibly changes their body and stunts puberty and all this stuff.
And they'll cope and they'll say, "Oh, the puberty blockers are reversible. It's all reversible. You're just spreading medical lies." Like you're the one gaslighting everybody about it.
Yeah, there's crazy stuff like puberty block, like your kneecaps forming. If you don't have proper hormones, like bone formation and cartilage and
brain
formation.
formation.
People have breathing problems because their lungs didn't form properly and stuff.
Oh man, that's creepy.
Yeah, and people say that it's medical care. Like they need this medical care, which I think is complete BS. But I've heard that like
psychological care is what they need.
I agree. I've heard that, you know, when kids go through these quote unquote therapies, these predatory therapies, it doesn't actually change like the suicide rates or like the rates of mental health issues. Like I read a statistic a couple weeks ago that like 80% of people in the trans community have dealt with like suicidal ideation, and like 40% of them attempt suicide at some point or another. And I've heard that these therapies and stuff like don't change the outcome of those. Do you guys know if that's true?
I've even seen that it makes it worse.
I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But I think the argument they have is the suicidal ideation is caused by a lack of acceptance. And if everyone just accepted them, they wouldn't want to kill themselves.
Bullshit. That's bullshit. And it's a hostage situation. So we have like these creepy, perverted autogynephiles basically holding children hostage with a gun to their head and saying, you know, if you don't go along with my agenda, this kid is going to kill himself.
Right.
Or, like, it's literally a hostage situation.
In the genderqueer book, this is the important thing I think a lot of people don't know too, because I'm sure there's gonna be a bunch of leftists being like, listen to these transphobes. There's actually, I've identified, and I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I've identified 3 different forms of transgenderism. I would refer to it because as an umbrella term, I don't just mean gender dysphoria. There is gender dysphoria. And that is where a person looks in the mirror and feels psychological disturbance because the body seems wrong. They look down at their body and they're like, something is not right. That's dysphoria. There's also then autoandrophilia and autogynephilia. So apparently the NCAA swimmer is what they call AGP, where this is not
Leah Thomas.
Yeah, it's not gender dysphoria. It's a sexual arousal at being perceived or treated as female.
That's so weird.
Then
Buffalo Bill.
There's autoandrophilia, which is females who get off being male. So in that book, Gender Queer, for instance, the woman who wrote it, that famous book with like the sex that they're showing kids, she says outright that the whole book is about how she is sexually aroused when people treat her or she is perceived as male. Like, that's not dysphoria. But there's a third, and the third is Dylan Mulvaney. And this is, Dylan Mulvaney is an actor. Dylan Mulvaney's not trans. I don't think Dylan Mulvaney is aroused at the thought of being a female. I think Dylan Mulvaney is a narcissistic Hollywood type.
Agreed.
Borderline personality disorder.
Agreed.
And says, what do I have to do to get more views and likes on social media? And so I've heard people say like, no, Dylan actually is trans. And I'm like, dude, AGP, AAP, the fetish people, they are not prancing around in the forest in high heels. They are not making videos where they sing about their bulges sticking out.
Yeah.
And they're aroused by it. And then you have actual gender dysphoric individuals who I have the most sympathy for because they're like, what the fuck, dude? Leave me alone. Like, these weirdos are fucking our shit up, who are just like, I just feel fucked up. Like my body doesn't match and I'm trying. And we're asked to have sympathy for those people. And I totally do.
Agreed.
Somebody who looks in a mirror and they're like, what's wrong? Like, this is wrong. I'm like, damn, that's gotta suck. But then some dude or chick who's getting off on it, I'm like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And then Dylan Mulvaney, who's like, I have a bulge, look at my bulge. I'm like, I'm not looking at your bulge, dude. Like, you are not, this is not what trans people do. And so Dylan Mulvaney to me is like any other Hollywood celebrity or actor who gets a nose job or facial surgeries or laser hair removal so they can be on camera. That's what Dylan Mulvaney is doing.
I agree. Have you guys seen the clip that's going viral right now of Dylan on the that one is so weird. But there's
pre-transition, he was on that game show where he's
have you seen
like,
that?
Oh no, let me pull it up.
Dude, there's a clip going around right now.
He's always been looking after fame, and like that market for a flamboyant gay guy who is like a theater kid, it's been filled. So you need to move to the next thing.
So Tim, it's a clip of Dylan on a game show.
Yeah.
What I think it's The Price is Right, something like that, and he's like, the host asks him to guess, which of these 5 items also costs $5.99. I saw it last night.
Oh, his Price is Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he guesses correctly that it's like a can of soup, and it's for it's for money or something like that.
It's like 10,000.
Dylan literally freaks out for like 3 minutes straight, just like dancing around.
I'm watching it, rolling around on the ground.
Yes. It's, dude, he dances for so long, and it's so cringe.
It's psychotic. It's not just cringe. It's like kind of scary. Like,
this is
100%.
Somebody who's desperate for attention to 100%. An extreme degree.
Yeah.
And when I look at his videos,
it's 40 seconds of him dancing and spinning.
At least it's like a minute and a half.
Like
it just never stops.
Mental, And this is like what comprises this big tent movement of trans people. And a lot of them are okay with it. They're okay with Dylan Mulvaney representing them, honestly. It doesn't seem like they have that big of a problem with it.
I'm going to keep the $5.99. Keep $5.99. Something else up here is $5.99.
Oh, it's Drew Carey. Wow, 2 years ago.
I'm going to say the soup.
This is just somebody who wanted to be
as now.
It's pretty fancy. It is.
A year into girlhood.
And dude, he knows exactly what he's doing, because when you watch the clips where he's like, day 300 of being a girl, like he doesn't even shave his beard. And he knows that like by not shaving his beard, it's going to make people freak out.
Normalize the bulge.
Normalize the beard, normalize the bulge, normalize all of these things that include being male as being part of a woman.
Another thing that's really freaky about Dylan Mulvaney is I think that a lot of these people choose not only to... They don't just want to look like a woman. They don't just want to present like a woman. They want to present like a certain specific woman that they idolized while growing up as like a little gay boy. And for Dylan Mulvaney, it's Jackie O or Audrey Hepburn. Some weird obsession with those women.
It's a minstrel show. It's a clown show.
Yeah.
What I see Dylan Mulvaney is doing to trans people and women what minstrel shows were for black people.
That's contempt for women. If you asked a man to act like a woman and he acts like that shows contempt.
What is that? Oh, okay.
So like a white guy putting black makeup on and then running around eating watermelon and fried chicken is what Dylan Mulvaney is doing to trans people and women. Because like, I know I bring it up a lot, but hiking heels in the forest.
It's so ridiculous.
Like trans people don't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's almost like the teacher with the Z cup fake boobs. It's like you're seeing how far you can push it because people are accepting this. Like all of the mega corporations, the literal White House, every like strata of power is behind Dylan Mulvaney right now. And it just seems like what a sociopath would do for fun, like as a hobby.
Right. It's a cult. Well, let's talk about that Drew Barrymore thing. Because you guys saw that one, right?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
And this is actually a good segue into like dating and stuff and feminism. Because I was thinking about this the other day. James Lindsay had this really great post where he said, cis women are learning their place kneeling before women plus who are better than them. Something like that.
Bro.
I thought it was really funny, and I was like, yo, you know what I think? I think that's actually the answer, right? Let me explain. So, Mary, there's this clip of you on the Whatever podcast where the women are talking about doing OnlyFans. And you're like, you know, your kids did not consent to that or whatever. And she's like, whatever, I can do what I want. If I was there, my response would have been, yeah, Mary, you're completely wrong. Like, you're totally wrong about this. Like, this woman talking about doing OnlyFans is recognizing her place serving men. And if she wants to, that is good for men, right? Like, no, hear me out. She gets paid because men stand above her smoking cigars, throwing dollars at her naked body because she's property for them. And that's finally, these women are starting to now realize. You've got the story of the woman who was a cop. She quits to do OnlyFans. There's a story of like a woman, she's like an interior designer. She quits, does OnlyFans. These are women who are like, hey, wait a minute. I will get more stuff and live more comfortably if I just get on my knees for men, right? The point is, not that I actually agree with any of that, but you put them in the position of, are you going to agree with me that you are a servant to men and the only reason you have money is because males are throwing dollars at your naked body?
Yeah.
Or are you going to reject it and be a strong feminist?
Their only point that they keep repeating is like, I'm going to be sexualized against my will anyway. Like, women are objectified all the time and they don't get to make any money off of it or benefit from it. So I'm just going to monetize the fact that I am sexualized. That means I'm empowered in doing it, which is obviously
you
stupid.
Are. That is so true. The world's oldest profession. You know, men, they do the hard work. Men, they deal with war and politics. Women should be in the room on their knees for men. And I agree with you. That was a great point. What are they going to say to that? They're going to be like, no, I have their money. Well, only because they choose to give it to you, but like
that's a huge cope. They're like, oh, I'm the one in charge of that interaction. But
yeah, but really, you can't make food.
You're doing this out of financial desperation. There's no situation in which you're the person in charge.
Let me ask you this,
Have you guys seen the Don Draper meme where it's like, you know, he's like pitching an idea in the boardroom and it's like, we'll get them to dance naked for the price of a cheeseburger and we'll call it female empowerment.
You call it female empowerment, but my question is there an app where you can look at men on their knees?
I don't know, and I don't want to know.
But not really.
Female nudity in the female body is like more of a valuable
Right, this is my point. To
commodity.
These women on OnlyFans, my response is, you are an object. You've accepted your role. Good for you.
They become caricatures of themselves.
See how the feminist gears turn.
She's got like these ballooned lips and she speaks in this baby voice. She's like the epitome of a bimbo and not like not even in an ironic way. She completely embraces that role, but then says that, you know, I'm the disempowered one. I'm not supporting other women. Like, no, you're making a mockery of us.
I don't like OnlyFans. But I'm fairly libertarian, so it's like whatever. But I think it's a bad thing for society. I don't think it's good for women or women's empowerment. But my point is simply, if you want to do it, the logical argument is, how does it feel being on your knees for men in order to survive? I can't imagine that would feel good, right? And then when they try and argue I'm empowered, I'll be like, yeah, empowered to like be on your knees for a man. But let's be real. The guy who's giving you the money, he has money. He produces. He can do whatever he wants. And then as soon as you're old enough, he'll forget all about you, but he will retain the skills that allow him to survive, which means by the time you're 35, 40, you're not going to be empowered. You're going to have nothing. And that guy who was throwing dollar bills at you, he's going to have a car, he's going to have an apartment, he's going to own a house, whatever, and you will have nothing. That's it.
Yep.
That's why I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Tim, let me ask you a question. So I agree that it's bad for society, but I want to know in your words why.
OnlyFans?
Yeah.
I think there's a reason monogamy emerged within human civilization across the board for like basically every society and for every different country. Like we see very, very similar practices, and it's because it increases the likelihood of survival. I think the reason we're starting to see OnlyFans and things like this is because our massive population explosion, there's no longer any kind of evolutionary pressure to reproduce. In fact, quite the opposite. With politics, they're being like, stop having kids and abort them. So humans end up chasing after self-pleasure, video games, dopamine triggers, and sex. So what you end up with OnlyFans is one grain of sand in this heap of I'll refer to the beautiful ones of Universe 25, the rat utopia experiment. What we are witnessing, so you guys familiar with this?
No.
Guy put a bunch of mice and rats in a box, gave them unlimited food and water, and watched what happened.
Okay.
And they eventually destroyed themselves and died, and then ceased to function. And when he would take one of the Universe 25 rats and put it into a normal rat population, it would retain these behaviors and spread them.
Wow.
So what happened was the rats, with unlimited food, some would groom themselves all day nonstop, just keep grooming themselves and poofing up their hair for no reason. And those were called the beautiful ones. They would all jam into a pile in one space, crammed together, despite the fact there was a ton of space. They started engaging in homosexual behaviors. Then they started dying off. They weren't reproducing.
It's literally exactly what our modern scenario is.
So
it's incredible.
When he would take some of those rats and then introduce them to a normal, healthy rat population, they would retain those behaviors and spread them. So it's like some social contagion existed. And that's what we're seeing now. So I view it as we, right now, with the way things are going, need discipline more than ever.
Completely agree.
Because we've mastered the universe of humans, and I mean that, I'm not saying literally the universe, I'm saying we can extract sugars and caffeine and compress it into one thing, which didn't exist in nature, and then hop our brains up on sugar and caffeine like crazy. We make drugs, we cure diseases, we can make ho-hos and ding-dongs. It used to be sugar was hard to get. Now we literally can take a spoonful of sugar to wash the medicine down. It's insane. With that access and wealth, you need discipline.
100%.
I'll put it this way. I knew this guy once, and he said, the lottery is proof poor people deserve to be poor. You know why? Because these people buy golden statues of themselves. And that was a big thing back in the day. It's changed a little bit. But some 40-year-old dude wins a $2 million jackpot, the money's gone in 6 months. They would spend it on insane garbage and golden statues and jewelry and other nonsense. I knew somebody who once won a couple $100,000 in a lawsuit. It was gone in a few months. And I'm like, how did you lose that? You could have put that in an investment account. You could have done. They have no idea how to maintain the wealth they've received, which is why they say that wealth lasts 3 generations. Some person works really hard, builds the wealth. Typically it's dudes. Then they have kids. Those kids learn a little bit from their parents about how to run the business. Parent dies, kid has kids, the grandchildren learn vague facsimiles of what was done to run the business. And then after they have another kid, they're spoiled. They've never worked a hard day in their lives and everything falls apart.
Weak men create hard times.
And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
With all of the shit going on. What's basically happening is we are on the 4th generation where we've lost touch with what made things good.
100%.
And that's why I think OnlyFans is bad.
That was a great answer. Thank you for that. The question on my mind when I hear the beautiful ones study and the fact that these mice could be placed into a normal mice population and they begin spreading the social contagion, the question on my mind is how do we as a culture develop an immune system to that social contagion so it doesn't completely take over everything? Because right now it is completely taking over everything.
It is, but for the people who live in rural areas,
Yeah.
who still have to work hard to survive,
Yeah.
it's not impacting them because they see physical hardship. Whereas with the beautiful ones in Universe 25, it was a box.
Right.
You could not escape it. Imagine if New York had walls around it. Well, yeah, then everyone in New York's going to lose their minds. But we're outside of it. So basically, the rats that were outside of those experiments just went on doing rat shit. They're fine.
Right.
Rat civilization has not collapsed, just that one city. So I kind of look at it like conversations like this exist because we are people who actually deal with harsh realities and are looking at them and fighting to survive. And people in cities have become listless and confused. So what I think is going to happen is I do feel like the inevitable result is wokeness and the left completely collapse and eradicate themselves. And it's horrifying if you think about it, but they're sterilizing their kids and they're aborting their kids. So the future is going to be...
they're eating fake meat and they're buying into climate change propaganda about not having kids, and they're doing other things.
They can do whatever the fuck they want,
Yeah.
but the end result is going to be they don't have kids.
Yep.
Or they sterilize their kids.
Which is why our side needs to have as many kids as humanly possible and be fruitful and multiply.
But they're not either.
But they're wondering,
we need to change that.
Can we
We need to change
vaccinate
that.
and sterilize and indoctrinate enough children faster than they are having the children? That's what they're wondering right now.
That's what they're wondering, and we should make a clear answer. No, you cannot. We need to outbreed them.
I don't think it matters because that's inevitable no matter what. The end result, you see these viral photos of the liberals get so crazy about it. it showed 12 kids all lined up from tallest to shortest. And the mother was smiling like this. And then they were like, man, they should tie your tubes or whatever. And it's just like, that picture is your defeat.
Yes.
And like, I don't have kids.
The sexual liberation people are like, sterilize her now.
Oh no, there's going to be too many of them. We can't indoctrinate them quick enough. So I don't know if I worry about it too much. I mean, I think we have to speak up against it because we have to maintain the barrier where we're talking to people, and the people who are willing to listen and understand what's happening will be pulled from it. But the end result, no matter what, whether we talk about it or not, will be the total collapse of this ideology. That being said, I think conversations like this will protect a larger group of people. If we weren't talking about it, if we weren't fighting back against it, 10%, of whatever group may persist, we talk about it, we could actually save a larger amount of people from the corrupt
100%.
ideology.
There's another aspect to this that's very interesting to me. So that clip of me saying that I would not have sex with a trans person because it would make me homosexual. Last I looked, it had somewhere, this was like a couple weeks ago, somewhere around like 30 million views across all the platforms.
Shit, dude.
Yeah,
and it's just you being like, I'm a guy.
The fact that this is a message that even needs to be vocalized out loud.
Like 100%. The interesting part about it, like what I said was so normal. Like we're all thinking it. You know what I mean? Like we're all thinking, I don't.
Andrew Tate's not.
Apparently not.
That was weird.
He's saying
he might have just been,
you just got to move that shit around and then you're good with Megan Fox. That's
like,
Andrew
you're not
Tate's.
good. What are you talking about? Like,
but the point is that
where are you putting
prison
it?
did things to him.
The point is that as it's gone viral, I've heard from so many people, both men and women, who are like, dude, thank you for saying what we were all thinking.
Yeah.
And guys, like they've reached out to me and they've been like, dude, like I saw your clip. I feel really called to start speaking up against this stuff right now. And that's the domino effect that I really want to see happen.
But look, so...
especially because you're just a normal person.
I'm just a normal person who said what we're all thinking. And like, that's all you have to do. I didn't say anything super extraordinary. And there's so many guys out there that could say the same thing. And they need to. You guys need to. Like, that's how we defeat this stuff.
I've told this will be the third time I've told this story, but it's just too good. I was at the casino last week. We're at the poker tables. And... this guy's got a Bowser toy. Because like when you play poker, people have a thing called like hand protector. They put it on top of their cards. So
Bowser like from Mario?
Yeah, from Mario.
Okay.
And then somebody made a joke about it. Somebody mentioned Mario. Someone then said, is there an evil Toad because there's an evil Luigi or whatever? And then I said, Toad is evil. The mushroom people are actually cordyceps fungus infected people. Like in Last of Us, and everybody laughs. And then one guy goes like, yeah, you watch that show? And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. I haven't played the video game. And he's like, yeah, it's really good. I really enjoy it. Except for that one episode.
Where they've got the gay scene out of nowhere.
The gay sex scene. And then everyone looks like shifty-eyed at each other. And then we all start laughing. And we're like, I go, I think I know what episode you're talking about. And he's like, what the fuck, man? And then other people at the table are just like, that dude should have got kicked out the moment he tried to play the piano. Like, the episode has a lot of gay sex in it. And it's just, and like they show it. And my point is, regular people sitting at a casino who don't know anything about politics were just like, yo, what the fuck? What is this? Yeah. Here's the issue. Like, I got no beef if gay people want to have a movie for gay people. Like that movie Bros. Do you see that one?
No.
Obviously not the movie, but like the commercials for it.
Well, yeah, and then it did terribly, and then they blamed straight people.
Oh, because, now I remember that.
Because listen, okay, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate.
Why won't you buy my spinach asparagus ice cream?
Because it's disgusting.
You're a bigot. You have to buy it.
I'm a bigot.
See, this is the thing. They're like, why didn't anybody go see my gay bro movie? And it's like, they don't hate you. They're just not gay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like for the Last of Us.
Let me ask you a question about when they were talking about that at the bar. When he said
poker table.
When he said that, do you think everybody at the table was thinking the same thing? Like, yeah, that was
They were all
disgusting.
laughing.
Yeah.
And everybody, like that's the point. Like when he said it, everybody starts looking left and right because you're not allowed to talk politics at the poker table because it's a casino. It's like a public thing. And so they're like, no, but so then he's like, that one episode, because he knows he can't literally say it. And then everyone just starts looking at each other and they all start nodding. And then I start busting out laughing.
See, bro, that's the point. That's the point, man.
We don't want to watch that.
They're trying to put us in this corner to make us convinced that we are not allowed to talk about this stuff, but everyone's thinking the same thing. I hate this.
But they want you to think you're the only one who's doubting
That's why they have to spend billions of dollars trying to propagandize everybody, because the reality is that we're all thinking the same thing.
I don't think it's that conspiratorial. I think
I think it is.
It's a runaway cult. it's dominoes falling over, right? California, everyone virtue signals. They're all like, I'm the most woke. No, I'm woke. So then the politician goes, I'll be woke for you. The politician doesn't actually give a shit about any of this, but California is proposing a new rule where if you don't meet your diversity requirements in your film project, they take away your tax benefits. So
they've done. Gavin Newsom passed a law too that says you have to have a certain amount of
that's it.
People of color or homosexuals or whatever on the board of your company.
So if you're making a movie
insane.
And you're Hollywood and they make most of it, then they're going to be like, okay, we need an episode that's got gay interracial sex.
Yeah.
And Last of Us, 30% of the show is gay relationships. And I'm just like,
bro.
They spent all of episode 7 on it as well.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm like, and I think 3 and 7, I'm like, fair point. The actress said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. And I'm like, that's absolutely correct. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Me, I like the show, but I don't much care for that weird injection of stuff. So I kind of just glaze over it and ignore it.
So let me ask you a question. The companies that are doing this, making movies like Bros or TV shows like The Last of Us, they see that these things aren't popular with the general population, but these companies also have a capitalist incentive to produce content that makes a financial return. And if people hate this stuff and they're rejecting this stuff, why do they keep pumping money into producing this stuff?
They're stopping.
Are they?
Yeah, Netflix is big news. We talked about the other day. They're canning a bunch of their woke programming. So there's this viral kids show they made about a non-binary bull.
I saw this.
Canceled outright. After one season,
Literally,
they're like, nope.
It's a show for toddlers, and it's like a baby bison talking to its grandmother and saying that it wanted to go by Fred because it's more like authentic to their non-binary identity. This is for like 3-year-olds.
Interesting.
And they canceled it, thankfully. But not after years and years of struggling with this and losing subscribers, you can tell that they don't actually care that much about profits if they're doing this.
Well, now they do, because now they're reversing and they're canceling a bunch of stuff and their subscribers are going up.
They've kind of gone to a point where they can't be taken down,
Sure.
They keep throwing money at things.
Here's what we need to do.
What do we need to do, Tim?
We need a write-in campaign to uncancel The Order, the show called The Order. You guys ever heard of it?
I haven't seen The Order.
Oh, you'd love it.
What's the premise?
Oh, okay. I'm wearing a Twilight hoodie.
Right, exactly. So it's a college, and it's not vampires, witches and werewolves.
Okay.
I think there's vampires or whatever. The villain in season 2 is a university professor communist who has this basically what happens is he's like, it's not fair that some people have magic. We should all have magic equally. And so then I'm like, this is great. This is exactly the politics that I want in my TV. They canceled it. It got 2 seasons. It got canceled.
Do you remember Legends of Korra? The Avatar
Equalists.
spinoff? Yeah, they were the equalists. They wanted to take bending away so that everyone would be equal.
This is my idea for a Harry Potter sequel. J.K. Rowling might actually be into it now that they're coming after her. But Harry Potter is the most generic shit ever. It's a fun universe, but it's basically Magic Hitler. You know what I mean?
What? Magic?
Voldemort.
Okay.
Yeah, he's Magic Hitler. He's like, everyone must be pure blood. And then that's the whole, and I'm like, we get it. A bunch of white supremacists are going to war, and you've made a book series about Hitler. They need to do, J.K. Rowling should make the next arc of Harry Potter's life. Here's my pitch. Muggle governments, you know what Muggle means, right?
Yeah.
Of course. Muggle governments, of course they're aware of magic. They've got spies everywhere. Mm-hmm. They've got satellites. They've come to the point where they know. The general population doesn't know. So what happens is they start experimenting with technology that can deflect and block magic. And so then imagine this. Harry Potter, right? The series is he's an Auror. He works for the government. He's in his office in the UK. And then all of a sudden there's a bunch of bangs. Tear gas, flashbangs through the windows, and then a bunch of dudes in full armor jump in with guns. They're going pop, 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 just killing wizards. And they're going whoosh, making barriers and shit. And then they cast spells, and it just dissipates off the armor of these fucking JSOC guys, special forces. And then basically what it is the governments are shutting down the rogue government existing within their government using magic. So what happens is, with this new technology that can deflect and dissipate magic, there is a movement of people who believe magic should not be allowed because it puts some people above others. So basically the villains are communist leftists who are like, these people have used wizarding privilege for too long to lord themselves over us, hiding in secret, and it's time we stopped them because no one should have that power.
How did the wizards succeed? How did they emerge victorious?
They don't. It ends with...
Well, you got to give the kids something to believe in. You got to give them like a strategy, you know?
The end result, in my view, of like that story arc is the merging of the Muggle world and the wizarding world, and wizards and Muggles living side by side in full knowledge of each other, and there being laws and restrictions on using magical force against other people. So it's like, my point is, the end result is more classically liberal, that some people just have magic and some don't. You can't destroy them, lock them up, and arrest them because they're the tall grass. You recognize they exist, but we say
it's kind of utopian.
What if the wizards? What if the wizards and the Muggles would be happier living separate from one another, though?
But that's oh yeah. But that's basically the story now. So J.K. Rowling is pro-segregation, so she has to make an integration storyline, as far as I'm concerned.
Wait, J.K. Rowling is pro-segregation?
Well, she wrote a whole series about how it's good.
Anything in real life?
No, I'm saying
she wrote it segregated.
Okay. Yeah, she wrote a story about how people have segregated each other because some think they're better than others.
Yeah.
Like even the good wizards still keep separate. With magic, they could end all war. They could imagine if there were some magic people working in government and they were like, oh yeah, we can fix that bridge. Oh, blah, and then the bridge is fixed. Instead, they let people die.
Well, it's sort of like Wakanda, right? Like they theoretically have this technology where they could either rule the world tyrannically or be benevolent rulers, but they just decide for some reason to be an insular culture that just doesn't want anything to do with the rest of the world. Like that's just not realistic.
Have you seen the first Black Panther?
Yeah.
What I think Carl Benjamin called it Adolf Hitler versus Richard Spencer. Because like T'Challa is a black nationalist. He even says he is. He says in the movie we can't open our borders because those people will bring their problems to us. But then Killmonger,
interesting how they're allowed to say that.
But Killmonger, right? Killmonger is like, no, we should use our technology and give it to all of the black people around the world and take over.
Interesting.
And it's like, okay. Like they're both racist.
To go back to what you were saying a second ago, I actually really like the thread of like positively propagandizing the youth to understand like these Marxist and communist dynamics that are at play, because there's so many stories today that like propagandize the youth into believing in Marxism and communism and all of these like oppression narratives and stuff. And I think storytelling is one of the most important ways to sink like deep lessons about life and culture into people's minds from a young age. And like, we need to do a lot more of that.
How many girls did you speak to that would identify as feminist?
Almost every single one on the podcast, with the exception of those 3 girls that were sitting next to me.
All the girls I was speaking to, none of them would like identify as a feminist when we went around the table.
Really?
Yet they believe all of
I don't think
what feminists believe.
Why do you think they rejected it? Do you think because they're like, it's bad optics?
Maybe they were a little bit embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they didn't want to look any stupider than they already had, made themselves out to be. But they all believe the same things that self-professed feminists believe. So what's even the point?
Well, I mean, it's Santa Barbara, It's
I don't think they believe it.
You don't think so?
It.
I mean,
virtue signaling.
How do you get a Kiko?
That's
what I found so confounding about that interaction between you two, because she is caping for literal men who want to masquerade as biological women.
The funniest part of that interaction.
And she's furious and horrified at what you've just said on their behalf, and they're not even in the room.
Real quick, she's mad that you won't have sex with them, which is really weird.
It was less that I wouldn't have sex with them, and it was more that I called it gay. Because her imperative was, I have to defend these men being women, and you calling it gay invalidates them being called women.
We don't call them same gender marriages. We call them same sex marriages.
Yes,
That's
exactly,
gay.
exactly.
So if you're both male, it's gay.
Yes,
now, I'm not 100%. Saying that to be mean to anybody. It's
100%.
Well, the ideology has evolved so quickly they can barely keep up, and they don't consciously realize as they change their opinions on these things that they're changing their opinions on these things, and that's how you get a Kiko. Like, she's been radicalized and doesn't even know it.
The most fascinating part to me about that interaction was the part when she goes, as a biological woman who doesn't even have any trans friends, that was fucked up. It's like, you don't have anybody to defend here, but you feel so compelled to attack me. How does that work?
And that's that's honestly when you just have to realize that women are so...
They've become weaponized.
It's not
by
just
the
children
ideology.
who are easy to indoctrinate. Adult women
100%.
are really easy to indoctrinate.
100%.
They're very collectivist by nature compared to men. They're just far more malleable to these ideologies. And that's why they all like are in a hive mind together. When they get on that podcast, they're sitting on one side of the table, obviously, and then they just start operating as one.
I'd have said to her, I'd be like, lady, you're not gonna shame me into fucking a dude. That's just it. And that's no beef to the dude.
But that
They can do
is
whatever they
what
want.
made her so angry, is that Chase was just so unbothered by the idea that he's like hateful for saying that, you know?
It's crazy to me that like she demand you have sex with a guy or she will storm out of the room.
I love it. It's good content.
And she's like, you better let me watch too. Like,
There's never been a better time to make liberals' heads explode.
But so
another interesting thing about it too, if you look at the comments of the video, there's trans women in the comments who responded and they were like, dude, honestly, Chase, I didn't have a problem at all with what you said. Like, I totally respect your position. It's okay. I'm not offended. But she's out there defending these people that don't even care to be defended.
It comes from women's like pathological need for, you know, feeling like they're altruistic, that they're reaching down.
It's the motherhood impulse redirected towards the oppressed, marginalized LGBTQI group.
Dude, when I saw Drew Barrymore get on her knees for Dylan Mulvaney,
so weird,
and start
bro.
crying,
so weird.
The first, and then they show the audience crying. The
audience of biological females who were just clapping like
and nearly crying. And there's only one thing that instantly popped in my head: repeal the 19th.
Yes, dude, let's go.
And I was just like, no. Why is it that I'm kidding, by the way? But
are you?
Well, you know what's interesting. You know what's interesting.
But women are for repealing 19th.
Yes, that's the part that's interesting. A lot of women are recognizing that these other women who are voting for all of these things and pushing our country in that direction, those women are putting normal women at risk by supporting all of this stuff, because you have transgender people that are going in women's spaces now, and it's mandated that they be able to do that by law. You have transgender women that are going to female prisons and they're raping female prisoners, and there's a lot of normal women who, ironically, do support repealing the 19th because they see how women having the right to vote is hurting other women, which is a very interesting discussion in our country. I'm curious where that one's going to go.
Well, so We Spa is the best example. Excuse me. We Spa was when there's this viral video of a woman being like, there's a man in the women's room exposing his penis to little girls. And they're like, ma'am, it's a trans person. There's nothing we can do. And she goes, no, it's not. It's a man. Turns out it was a man, not a trans person, who had a history of exposing himself to women.
Wow.
But because of the whole political debate, they immediately assumed, well, it must be a trans woman. They didn't even fucking go check.
Well, what's the difference?
The guy got arrested for exposing himself.
What's the fundamental
check
difference,
this out.
though?
Check this out.
There's a political argument. So the point is this. If it actually was a trans person, we'd have an argument over what's wrong with these laws. But the fact is, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a guy who was not trans, who wanted to show his penis.
Was he even like cross-dressing?
My understanding is he was not, and he had a history of doing this and had been arrested for it before. And they didn't even go check. The fact that the whole trans argument existed, they were just like, you know.
It's the assumption is like, oh, you're just being a hysterical woman. Shut up.
Dude, check this out. So I used to work as a lifeguard at a pool.
Okay.
And we had all these like homeless people in the area. There's a lot of homeless people in the city. There's this one guy, this homeless guy, who would come into the pool and he would literally just put a wig on his head, wearing male clothes, like unshaven, beard, all this stuff. He would put a wig on his head. And by law, as an employee, by law, I had to allow him to go into the women's restroom. When this was like 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, I could not stop him from going into the women's restroom because he was identifying as a female. And there were like little girls in there and stuff. And like every freaking cell in my body was like, dude, you need to stop this guy. And my boss was like, if you do, there's going to be lawsuits against us and you'll probably get fired. And I'm just like,
yeah, you'll lose lawsuits.
Because there's little girls in the restroom and like, who knows what this guy is going to do? And the fact that people like me can't stop it, it's like, what do you do about that?
And moms are the ones that are leading the charge now because of that.
As they should.
So the issue is for trans people, before this whole thing became a major political debate, trans women were using women's bathrooms and no one really ever said anything. It wasn't a cultural thing. Then they started passing these laws and now you get people who exploit it. Like you mentioned, the prison thing.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain that the stories are inmate identifies as transgender, transferred to female prison, rapes inmates. I'm pretty sure they're not trans. I'm pretty sure they're exploiting the law.
100%.
And because
100%.
a lot of these guys are not trans, go to jail, and then all of a sudden are like, I'm trans now, can I go to the women's prison? And they go, yep.
100%.
Yeah.
But how are we supposed to read their conscience if you genuinely identify as trans or not?
Well,
Like,
it doesn't matter.
There's examples.
Impossible
There's
to know.
It doesn't matter. You just don't do cross-sex prisons.
Yes, there's examples where dudes will get convicted of a crime, and then just before their sentencing and their trial and stuff, they will like all of a sudden change their gender just so they can
and how
go
about
to a
that?
female
If you
prison.
feel uncomfortable being around other male inmates, you can go to solitary.
Yeah, I think like we need to really like separate the males and the females and have like a they them section where we can send all these like bathrooms.
You can all just go
prisons.
just
go in there.
The answer to everything is gender non-conforming designated space.
Yeah.
So for prisons, there should be gender non-conforming prisons. That means that biological males who identify as female have a space and females who identify as male have a space, and it can be very small. The budget doesn't have to be big for it. Bathrooms, you know what the easiest thing to the bathroom debate is? Single room bathrooms.
There you go.
And that's what they're doing now in New York.
Even that feels like too much of a concession, honestly.
No, dude.
Why can't we just enforce that you go in the
I'll tell
bathroom
you
with
why.
your sex?
Because when I go to the bathroom at like a restaurant and the stall is paper thin and some dude's next to me going,
I've never said that public bathrooms are like the best thing ever, but
so give me my own fucking room.
It does feel
I love
like a concession to just be like, okay, we're appeasing you. We're going to make everyone comfortable.
Yeah, but I win from it. Like my thing is, I go to a restaurant now in New York, and there's like 3 rooms that you go in and lock the door, and it's not just about the other guy going. It's about me doing that too, and not wanting to be around a bunch of people who are like, oh, the smell, and I'm like, I'm sorry, dude, I just got to shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I like private room bathrooms. It works for everybody. If the end result is a net positive, fuck it, I don't care. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But that being said, the solution to a lot of this is like trans leagues, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And the NFL
100%.
the NHL did that. And conservatives still got mad. And I was like, what are you mad about? They did a transgender league with trans women and trans men, and they're playing hockey against each other. And then I saw a bunch of conservatives be like, men should be competing with
honestly,
women.
the most entertaining thing would be to see these trans women competing against normal dudes. Like, I would love to see that in the UFC.
They'd probably lose because
they'd absolutely
hormones
lose.
do have an impact.
Absolutely.
So
but it
like,
would be entertaining.
Here's the thing, though. Do you know who Isaac Hennig is?
No.
Isaac Hennig is a female who was competing on the women's team, swimming, alongside a male competing on the women's team, and trans. So why is it that a trans man, female, and a trans woman are only competing against women? So what happened was Isaac Hennig wrote an op-ed for the New York Times saying, I switched to the men's team and now I'm losing.
Interesting.
So what the fuck, man? Like, a female knows that even with hormones and mastectomies and all that they still lose against men on average. And so they were choosing to compete against women because of the benefits of it. Like, that's like, we know they're lying.
It's so transparent.
Yeah.
Wasn't that guy, Leah Thomas, wasn't he like 180th in the men's league in swimming or something? And then he became first.
No, I think he was actually really good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think he was actually pretty high ranking.
While you look that up, do you mind if I use the restroom real quick?
Oh, yeah, it's right there.
Okay.
Some of these transgender athletes are actually like some of the biggest, most muscular dudes out there who would excel anyway.
Oh, never mind. 462nd. Okay.
Oh, that's even lower.
Yeah, it's even worse than what he just said.
Yeah, he's
Yikes.
just like coping for his mediocrity.
In the 200-yard freestyle, 554th.
Yeah. Oh, look, a lot of these like male to female trans people are like huge linebacker dudes.
Well, you've seen Superman?
Superman?
Superman.
No, I haven't.
You've never seen that one?
I haven't seen it.
Where it's like a 6'3" male wearing like a pink hoodie and blue jeans and makeup, screaming, "It's ma'am! It's ma'am!"
Okay, yes,
and
I've seen that. Yeah.
the little.
It's sort of like when we would give like nicknames to Trigglypuff and.
No, I think they call themselves Superman. They made a song about it called Superman, or something like that.
That they would identify themselves after that video came out. That's crazy.
I mean, wait. I respect it. I'm like, I don't respect the getting angry and slapping shit around and screaming. But owning it.
It's roid rage. It's the same thing as roid rage.
At least they owned it.
Yeah.
Like, I got to give it to them. You know what I mean? Like, if you get made fun of online and you're like, you got me, I can't win this one, I'll be like, I respect it. Like, know when they got you.
When it's the male to female, I think like scary, creepy, a lot of perverts in that pool. And then when it's female to male, I just think it's sad.
I think it's, I think a lot of the male to female is the AGP stuff. And I think a lot of the female is social contagion stuff.
Yeah.
That's why among trans kids, like 85% female to male. Because it's like social media.
But the older ones is mostly male to female. The older trans people are usually male to female.
That's why
the younger
I'm saying like among kids, it's girls who are trying to fit in. Yeah. And they're trying to get clicks and likes on social media. And they're being indoctrinated. Because one thing I've heard a lot, I have 2 friends, people who've been on the show, have had their daughters come back from school being told they were trans.
Wow. Yeah.
And another thing is, I think they don't know what that means.
The female to male younger individuals, they are kind of retreating from what has become of female sexuality, which is such a gross like perversion of what it's supposed to be. Like
you said, the
beautiful and dignified thing it's supposed to be. The ones who identify female to male.
Gotcha. Yeah.
They're retreating from the mess that has become of female sexuality. And it's because of like the whores that you're talking to on whatever, like the whores that are on that show. That's the representation that we have of women now. And why would you want to?
Which is why we need,
have that expectation.
That's why we need
set
to bring
on you
back
to be,
godly femininity.
Yeah, like I don't think they want to be these
woman.
hypersexual, stupid bimbos.
Yeah.
They want to be regarded with dignity, but they're so horrified. I think a lot of them turn to transgenderism because it's less frightening in their mind to live as a man.
Honestly, I
or a
think,
second-rate man
Mary,
than to be a woman.
I think
days.
a lot of what it is attention-seeking behavior and narcissism. Because you open TikTok and like there's all of these kids that are like, yeah, I'm trans, and everybody's like, you're so brave, like giving them crazy amounts of attention, and they get like all this love and attention from all the people around them. Like kids want attention. A lot of it's attention-seeking
Mulvaney
behavior.
Is this that Price is Right video is revealing?
Yes.
Like I've watched Price is Right. People will jump up and down and go, I got it, yay, and then they'll walk away.
Yeah.
Dylan, for a minute and a half, is running around, grabs a pool stick and does like a rowboat thing, falls to the floor and starts rolling on the ground. Like, what are you doing?
It goes on like 3 times longer than it should have.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I feel like the people who have genuine gender dysmorphia or dysphoria or whatever, like those people are probably not going out seeking shitloads of attention and all of that kind of stuff. They probably are just trying to live their lives quietly. Most of them, I would imagine. But the people that really want attention, like they go so hard with it. And to me, it's so transparent,
Yeah. Okay. Another thing that I wanted to get your perspective on from your interactions talking to them about OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Is like... It's really disturbing how the girls who don't have OnlyFans are like the biggest defenders of the girls with OnlyFans, and that's what I experienced on whatever as well.
What do you think motivates that?
There's this girl who says, like I've slept with one person, she's never done sex work, she's never done any of that. Yet she is one of the fiercest defenders of the girls on the other side of the table who do porn, do OnlyFans, strip, etc.
What do you think motivates that?
Well, I'm asking you, like, what do you think?
Well, on the last episode I did, episode 33, one of the girls at the table came to the defense of the other girls, and she was like, look, ladies, like, if you want to get that bag, go get that bag, but I'm not going to do it. And I think the reason why she was like, if you want to get that bag, go get that bag, is because if she takes the opposite position and she's like, no, it's degenerate, you shouldn't do that, women are nasty, and they would attack, they attack other women. And like oftentimes I think if girls don't have strong convictions about this stuff, they do not want to get attacked, so they're willing to make concessions in order to avoid all of that negative energy and anger and outrage. That's what I think is motivating it.
I've seen it with abortion too. They say, I would never get an abortion because I feel like it's
wrong.
But
if you want to do that,
you do that, that's up to you. That's your choice, queen.
I think it's because they don't want to get attacked.
I don't respect the moral pussyfooting around. Like, maybe that's just my personality. And, honestly, some of the people were pointing this out in the comments that I'm like a disagreeable, outspoken person.
And most
I probably
most women
in another era
Yeah.
would be like the feminist. I probably would be. That's just the type of person I am. But because we're living in this time period, now I'm like considered like the trad person, and I'm like, what? Like I am the opposite of what that is.
I think you'd be like a local church leader you'd be like one of the moms who's like complaining about I think you'd be doing the exact same thing, but you would just have people on your side in the community as opposed to being anti-establishment.
Well, I wouldn't have anything to talk shit about, right? So,
you would.
What would I disagree with people about?
The same
this pathological need.
The exact same thing you're complaining about now, except there's way more of it today than there was 50 years ago.
Totally.
So you'd be having meetings and being like, everybody, like instead of 3 people here, there'd be 50. And you'd be like, I don't know what's going on with these kids, with the stuff they're doing, we gotta say no to. I mean, they're putting their self-naked bodies on TV and posters. I don't know about rock and roll. I'm saying like they're sharing. Little Janice in high school took a picture of her naked body and was passing it around to boys, and they were paying her for it. And they would be like, "Oh my God, Mary, what's going on with our city?"
My main point being like all of these generally agreeable, normal girls, not me. They're the ones defending the OnlyFans stuff because they want to go along and get along.
Smoke.
That's how
they
women
don't want
are.
The smoke. Yep.
So like, how are women, if we're the gatekeepers of sex and relationships and everything, going to be leading the charge on like reversing the effects of hookup culture if you can't even verbally justify your own objection to doing it yourself?
That's an excellent question. And the answer is women are not meant to be the ones leading the charge.
Really?
A
lot of people were commenting saying
finish.
like, women should.
Let me finish. Yes, women should stand up against it. Absolutely. Women should embody virtue and be disagreeable when it comes to this degenerate stuff. However, I believe that's why God designed men. He created us to lead. And the problem is that a lot of dudes are simps and they're like addicted to sexual stimulation and they don't want to speak up against this stuff. But the reality is that if enough men vocally are like, look, I do not like women being whores and selling their bodies online and getting ran through and all of this degeneracy. If enough men say that, and those men are desirable to women, the women will see the men saying that and they'll be like, wow, okay, this is a total disqualifier for me as an individual. And that's how it changes.
But it's not going to happen because...
It can happen.
Most guys that...
And it should happen.
Guys that are tall, chiseled, wealthy, attractive, or whatever, are like, why buy the cow when I get the milk for free? Let the whores be whores. I can have whatever I want, whenever I want. Yeah, feminism was like the best possible thing for guys.
Yes.
Because now...
If you're interested in the easy fix. If you're interested in the easy fix, for sure.
Because now you have guys who have no responsibility but get the milk for free. It used to be that when the guy banged the farmer's daughter, the farmer would run out with a shotgun and be like, oh, you're marrying my daughter. And it's like, oh, geez. And then they have a shotgun wedding where it's like, say I do.
And that's also when fathers cared about their daughters. And unfortunately, you know, the girls that I was speaking to, at least, I don't know about the girls you were speaking to, they don't have their fathers in their lives.
Yep. The majority of them are like that. Here's what I would say in response to that. You say it can't happen. I say not only can it happen, but it should happen, and God willing, it will happen.
Not that it can't. It likely won't.
It likely won't. Given the same incentives and society and culture that we have right now, on our current trajectory, it won't.
Is it over?
It's not over. We are about to be so back because what I feel the calling that I feel like God's put over my life is like I want to motivate other men to pursue godly principles and virtue so that they can become the greatest men they can be, and they can reject the easy fix, getting the milk from the cow for free. And
only other men can give them that calling.
Yes, and also like God changed my life. I'm a Christian, and like I used to be the guy who's like, yeah, dude, I just want to hook up with as many girls as possible, all that kind of stuff. And God, over the years, worked on my heart, helped me see the value of marriage, helped me see how OnlyFans destroys culture, casual sex, premarital sex, all of this stuff destroys culture. It destroys marital outcomes, right? You look at the number of premarital sexual partners people have had. It directly correlates with the likelihood of divorce, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you look at our society as a whole, fatherless homes and divorced homes are breaking our society. The likelihood that a kid is going to end up addicted to drugs or go to jail or not graduate high school or kill themselves drastically increases if they come from a broken or fatherless home. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of guys are waking up to this, and there's a lot of, especially young dudes, there's a lot of young dudes out there who see what's happening in the culture and they hate it and they want to fix it. And I want to do whatever I can to motivate those guys to be like, hey, reject the easy fix, pursue the good, pursue the virtuous, ideally godly biblical life, And we can shift the culture in a different, better direction if enough guys reject all of this stuff. The trick is getting dudes to reject that casual, easy sex that so many guys want.
Like women, I think, have been screwed over for the most part, and men have benefited the most from feminism.
100%.
But it's a short-term gain. Men have benefited in the sense that they no longer have any responsibilities. They can stay at home, play video games all day. They can have kids whenever they want. They can have kids when they're 80 years old.
Yep.
They got nothing to worry about.
They also have no respect, though.
Yeah,
which is what men want is to be respected.
My message.
No, but look, like
my message to those guys, Tim, is like I've got friends. I live in California. I'm friends with like a bunch of Chads who like just love running through chicks at parties. Yeah,
running through.
Yeah, they love to run through chicks. I knew so many guys like this in college and stuff. And like my message to those guys is like a lot of those guys see what's happening in our culture and they dislike it. And I'm like, you can either contribute to that or you can get yourself together and do your part to stop it. And a lot of these guys realize this and they're like, man, I don't like the whore culture that's emerging. I want a good wife. Maybe I should get myself together and like pursue a virtuous marriage.
Have you seen them do that?
Yes, there are guys that are waking up to this. Absolutely.
They've actually they've changed their behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I feel like men are maybe more equipped to do that after promiscuity is like their norm. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can articulate all the reasons why, but like...
I like when I was an atheist before I came back to Christ, like my whole goal was to just hook up with as many chicks as possible and have as much fun as possible.
Goal.
Yeah, dude. I was in college.
5 by the end of the day.
I was in college surrounded by hot chicks. I was like, yeah, dude, I want to hook up with as many of them as I can. It was like a game that my friends and I would play.
And another thing that's like awful,
but my point is God changed that.
It takes disagreeable women to even say no to sex.
Yes. Wow. And it takes virtue.
And women just aren't disagreeable enough to do that.
That's not true. There are a lot of women out there who will reject it, but their voices are not the ones that the culture is hearing. The culture is hearing from like the whores, you know?
Yeah.
Yep. Because the people who, like Chelsea Handler, right?
Yeah.
She made that video where she was like, here's what I do when I wake up and I have no kids. I do drugs and masturbate at 6 a.m.
That's what goes viral. That's who people
it's really
hearing
weird
from.
that you would wake up at 6 a.m. and do drugs and masturbate when you could have just woken up at 10 a.m. and done it.
Yeah.
You wake up early to do it and then go back to bed, but you do you. That's the message. And then we get criticized. She like criticizes me and a bunch of other people. I said the least mean thing about her. I like Ben Shapiro said she's miserable. Look at her, that is misery. And I didn't say any of that. I said she's happier than a pig in shit. Waking up, doing drugs and masturbating probably feels real good. But one day when she's in her late 60s, 70s, she's in a hospital room. The doctor's going to come in and say, Miss Handler, I have bad news. It is terminal. Is there anyone we should call? And she's going to go, no. I'm like, okay, ma'am. Well, we're here if you need us. And they leave. And then she's going to be sitting there staring at the ceiling with a blank stare with no one as she slowly fades from reality.
Rip.
It's not that far
That's
off.
nightmarish to me. I don't want to be there. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want people I know and love and care about being like looking you in the eyes and saying, everything you hoped and dreamed of will persist because we are here to carry on your dreams. And then I will smile, and then my eyes will turn white, and then I'll turn to dust like a Jedi or something. But the idea of being in a hospital room with like nobody, and then they're like, then the doctor walks back in, Chelsea Handler's dead, and he goes, Miss Handler? She's dead! Eat the garbage bags, toss her out back, throw in her trash.
They'd rather do this Futurama suicide booth than that.
I'll do that too.
Have you guys seen that clip of Tate on Fresh and Fit talking about, like, I think it was his grandmother or grandmother of somebody he knew, and how they went to a family reunion and there were like 90 people there or something who had all descended from his grandmother.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the message women need to hear. I saw there was an image on Twitter the other day of a woman who, she was like a great grandmother at this point in her 90s, and she had like 600 like children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren from her lineage. Like that's what women should aspire to. That is awesome, But the Chelsea Handlers, because they're so like provocative with their degeneracy and stuff, that's the stuff that goes
There's
viral.
such a negative message being sent to women right now about becoming mothers as well. Like,
and that's something we have to change.
Here's what we do.
has to change.
Here's the propaganda film.
Okay,
it is
it's
an old lady. She's in her 90s and she's walking, and then there's like a mugger, and he goes, pulls out a knife. Hey, old lady, give me your bag. And she goes, give my bag to you? Do you know who you're fucking with? And then she presses a button on her phone, and then 600 people rise up, with all of her children, grandchildren.
Her Italian mob.
Yeah, her Italian mob family.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And they're like, what's the problem, Grandma? this guy fucking with you?
Let's go.
And then the guy's like, no. Yeah, she's
that make
like
a fantastic short film.
Actually, it would be funny if like the Don, it's Grandma Don, and she's the mob ruler just because they're all her kids and grandkids and great grandkids.
It's too feminist. It's too feminist, bro.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But it's actually that message speaks to men, not women. Like the idea of power and fighting. So I was reading this thing about movies and how the male power fantasy is to be the hero saving everybody. Mm-hmm. And the female power fantasy is to do whatever you want and win in the end. That's why movies men like, it's the guy's the underdog and he's like fighting against the evil villain to save the busload of children. That's the male power fantasy. The female power fantasy is that she has a good paying job. She can do whatever she wants. She goes and gets coffee in the morning, buys cake, and then she fucks around and then finds the good guy and ditches her other guy, and then she's getting laid in the top of a company.
No, I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's the psyop female power fantasy. I think the true female power fantasy for women that are in alignment with their nature is finding that guy who's like the superhero, the hero, whatever, and then he loves her and commits to her, and then the two of them like go on a journey together. I think that's.
But
would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, being a helpmeet.
But I think you're right, and that's why these movies typically have both, right? Spider-Man. You have Mary Jane Watson as a story arc, and you have Spider-Man as a story arc. And Mary Jane is trying to be an actress, and she wants to be with Peter, but Peter is torn. So the narrative that works for both men and women is the guy who wants to do his job and do right by society, but is also struggling to do right by his partner, his woman, and then the woman and what she's experiencing emotionally. Both of those things are like speaking to men and women. Now movies are, the woman has big muscles and is punching a zebra.
Captain Marvel. Did you see Captain Marvel?
It was terrible.
Dude, it was so ridiculous.
Control your emotions.
It was so, dude, in Captain Marvel, they intentionally made all of the men completely incompetent and stupid, and she just can do everything at all times, and none of the men
narrative
can do anything.
is the man says you need to control your emotions. That's what he says to her in the beginning. And then finally in the end, she goes, no, and then powers up and he's like, what? No, and then she blasts him or something.
Kind of the same thing as She-Hulk.
She-Hulk was awful. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I mean, we got the problem is we did not cheer for Captain America. That's the problem. Captain America comes out and it's this scrawny dude who's like, I love my country so much, I'll jump on a grenade for it. And we're like, that's cool. When we should have been like, make more movies like this. Make more movies where the hero is the scrawny guy who's weaker than everybody, who refuses to back down and believes in his country so much, he volunteers he desperately tries to join the military. Captain America is a movie about a dude who gets rejected 5 times and is lying on documents desperately trying to serve his country. And we didn't come out and say, this is the greatest movie, every child should watch this. We went, meh. And then when they make the woke bullshit, we go, that's stupid. Well, we got to celebrate the good shit. You know what I mean?
That's why I freaking loved Top Gun, bro.
Yeah.
When I saw Top Gun, I was like, dude, America is back, bro. We need to protect Tom Cruise at all costs, man.
And it made $1 billion.
Yeah. And I think the formula why was so interesting because we see all these movies with all this woke nonsense, and then finally we have just a classic traditional all-American male hero, and we've got a classic traditional woman who's his love interest.
He gets the girl in the end.
He
wins.
He gets the girl in the end. He saves the day. You've got a bunch of normal, attractive people, not a bunch of fatties and weirdos that they're pushing on you. You saw Top Gun, right?
Yeah, of course.
When they had the beach football scene and everybody's in shape and having fun and stuff. I watched that. I was like, bro, where's this been? This is amazing. Yeah. We need more of this,
Yeah.
Yep. Now it's morbidly obese people.
They're not fat enough. They're not representative enough.
Yeah.
Do you see the viral clip of the fat guy on the plane? And it's playing sad.
Yeah.
What happened?
He's just it's hard for
us big people to travel, but you know what? If you're watching this and you're fat, you're just as worthy of traveling as anyone else. And he's barely fitting into his seatbelt, the airplane bathroom.
And then there was the Sydney Watson thing where she was trapped between 2 fats. And you could see the fat pouring over, and she's
how is that allowed?
Yeah.
If you're that large, just get 2 seats.
Dude, I was on a plane once, and the guy to my right was 400 pounds. He was huge, and he was pouring over. And then the food cart comes up, and the lady's like, would you like to buy any food? And I'm like, what do you have? And she was like, snack box, chocolate, sandwiches, meats. And I was like, what kind of sandwich? She's like, it's chicken salad. And I was like, I'll have a chicken salad sandwich. And the guy to my right goes, I'll have a chicken salad sandwich as well. And I'll have the snack box. I'll have 2 snack boxes. And what else do you have? Do you have chips? I'll take 2 bags of chips, and then I'll have 2 Cokes. Can I get the 2? I can only get 1 Coke now. I'll do another sandwich then. Dude. And I'm just like, holy shit.
You should have stopped that guy, bro.
Hey, man, you know what, dude?
People need to feel a little more ashamed of themselves these days.
Yes,
maybe.
We need to bring back a culture of shame. That's
about
the
a lot
thing.
Of things.
With like the OnlyFans stuff.
Yeah.
Like, dude, when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and all that, I dropped like the hardest, most savage Instagram story ever on my personal Instagram, just roasting whore culture. And all of these girls that like I went to high school and college with slid into my DMs and they were like, hey, like, hope you're doing well. Like, I disagree with like your views, but like, just hope everything's cool. Because all of these girls who were whores in high school and college and afterwards, like they saw the fact that a guy was shaming all of this and they desperately wanted to save face and they didn't want to be perceived as these things. Like there is value in bringing back shame and guilt.
Well, that's
Birth
the thing.
control and abortion have completely taken the risk out of having sex with strangers.
Yeah, except for
I don't know
STDs.
if a lot of people like, well, yeah, STDs too. But like a lot of people, even in that audience of whatever, or podcasts like it, people who generally agree with like red pill dating philosophy, they're still not getting on board with like the real truth of the matter. I was getting pushback on the show because I was saying like, you can't, have premarital sex and then expect to have the same ability to pair bond afterwards.
Which is such a reasonable position.
They were all saying like, Mary's just taking it a little too far. Like
so ridiculous.
And even they were like shaming the
data.
OnlyFans girls, the whores, the sluts. They're shaming them for sleeping around, but at the same time, they want to keep their ability to do the same thing.
Right, exactly.
You can't be hypocritical.
The
it's all or nothing.
Exactly.
The average OnlyFans chick makes no money.
It's like $100 a month or something. I'm sure the median is even lower.
So, a friend of my friend said that she was tired of working these low-paying jobs. She was struggling to make ends meet, so she's going to do cam girl stuff because she thinks she'll make a lot of money and then get to break out or whatever. She made no money, and she put she made porn and put all over the internet, and now, congratulations, people have copied and shared your porn for free. You've put your naked body doing weird sex shit on the internet that will be there forever. You can never come back from it, and you made nothing for doing it.
That's so brutal.
I mean, look, you do your.
I feel like even if you're like buying G-Wagons and buying
has this
mansions
happened to?
from it, it's still not worth it. It's spiritually and mentally corrosive.
Yes. How many women have done OnlyFans?
I don't know.
Do we know?
It's probably, if
Like,
you
what's
really
the
looked at it, not
casualties?
that many.
Let's
It
look it
got
up.
pretty bad during the pandemic because people were like, losing their jobs and not able to pay rent, and then turned to that as the last solution, which is really
classic.
sad. But
society starts falling apart and millions of women just
2.1
instantly turn to
million
prostitution.
OnlyFans creators.
the oldest profession is actually the oldest form of subjugation.
Yes, it is.
There's
you said 2.1 million.
2.1 million. The most popular account is Bella Thorne.
That's why everyone like
I don't think she does sex
advertises
stuff.
like top point whatever percent on OnlyFans, because you have to be in a top 1% to make a living off of it.
And then Cardi B is second. I don't think they're doing sex stuff though. That's like celebrity access stuff.
It's
Yeah,
like
I think
lewds.
it's just like showing their tits and stuff like that.
Bella Thorne? I don't.
She made
pretty
$1 million
sure.
on the first day she was on the platform just posting like bikini photos.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But there is something I want to bring up. So, we're talking about like bringing back shame culture and speaking up against all of this stuff. And what's extremely obvious to me in this entire dynamic is that like when that clip of me saying I wouldn't have sex with a trans person because it would make me gay went viral, I got so many messages from dudes in particular who were like, man, I like seeing your video makes me want to speak up against this stuff. And it's obvious to me that the more people that speak up against this stuff, the more members of the silent majority actually express how they feel about these things, that is what will enable us to begin shifting the culture. But the problem is that a lot of people want to say these things, but they're worried that they're going to get fired from their jobs.
Right.
And like, I got a message from a guy the other day. He's like, dude, I'm a father, I'm a husband. I spoke up against some of this stuff, just basic conservative values, and people came after him to try and get him fired from his job. And he was like, look, this is affecting my long-term career prospects. Like, this is a problem.
More than it would if he had an OnlyFans.
Literally. And he's like, dude, do you have any recommendations for me? One of the coolest things that's happened in the past couple of weeks in terms of like people sliding into my inbox, shooting me opportunities and stuff after going viral. The guy who founded novaxmandate.org, his name is JP, he reached out to me and he was like, bro, I want to create a platform where people can network professionally with other companies or business partners who are aligned in values so that we can get people career sovereignty so that they can begin speaking up against all of this different stuff. He reached out to me. He was like, bro, I want to
JP Sears?
No, not JP Sears. He's awesome. Though. Shout out JP.
Name?
Valadez.
Okay, Valadez.
Valadez. He was like, yeah, I want to create a platform where we can basically connect people, almost like LinkedIn, but for just based people.
Well, you know, Public Square is.
Yes,
there's Public Square.
That's essentially like a
Founding.
directory of businesses. From what I
But
understand,
they have a social component where you can.
Do they?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We so anyways, so he reached out to me. He was like, do you want to help me found this company? I was like, bro, absolutely. Because we need more people working at careers and jobs where they can actually speak up against this stuff. So for everybody listening, we're building this right now. We're building 2 apps. There's Based Pros, which is basically based LinkedIn for people who are like us, who reject all this stuff.
Pros.
Yeah, Based Pros. And then we're also building Based Dating for people who, like Christians who are unvaccinated, looking for other Christians who are unvaccinated, or you don't have to be Christian, you could be a different religion. Just looking for people that are aligned with all this stuff and reject like global homo and everything that's being pushed on us.
There's been a lot of attempts at that though. There's like, you know, there's a conspiracy theorist dating website now.
There's a few of them.
One,
Conspiracy theorist
there's a few
dating
of them.
site?
Yep.
Oh, that just sounds like a mess.
That sounds like fun though.
What's cool that we've got a lot of momentum and a lot of support behind it. And if people want to build that like career sovereignty and they want to find like-minded people that, you know, they can ideally get married to, start having kids with. If people are interested, they can go to getbased.org. You can pop in your email. Yep. Getbased.org, pop in your email. We're sending out updates. We're building the platforms right now because we need people that are able to speak up against this stuff. And like, dude, like you guys see the people on the whatever podcast, you guys see the girls. Like one of my biggest struggles living in California has been finding like-minded women who like are not whores.
Go to church.
I have, but there's not a tremendous amount of, you know, young women at church, particularly super
Increasingly, it's
attractive
older
ones.
people who go to church.
Yeah.
Think about what that means in 30 years.
Yeah.
There won't be churches. Churches will be converted into grocery stores or something.
I reject that.
That
will happen over my dead body.
There's a church down the street here that's a coffee shop now.
That's a shame. But
it's
anyways,
it's a good coffee shop. You know, they got heavy whipping cream, so I'm happy.
This is exactly why Christians need to get together and have as many babies as possible so that we can take back the culture.
It's what they've always done.
So we got AI swooping in, right? I think this is like apocalyptic on the you know, in terms of all the crisis stuff. People are going to AI generate porn.
They already
use
are.
VR and Neuralink stuff.
Yep.
Now, I'm not even talking about the deepfake stuff. They're outright just going to be like, plug my brain in and say, give me a hot 24-year-old woman who is a Starfleet command officer and, you know, whatever.
100%.
That's it.
It's so weird to
Once
think about.
Once they plug in, humans just cease to exist.
How far away do you think that is?
Well, Neuralink, I don't know. The AI stuff is already happening. They're already AI generating. So we played this the other day on IRL. AI generated using Midjourney, a woman in a space, like a space captain or something. And she's got like white hair. It's like pushed to the side. Then they used a program to make a fake voice. Then they used the voice in the image to create a voice animation, an image animation. So they actually have her talking, saying, I am an AI generated person, blah, blah, blah.
It's like Blade Runner 2049.
And people it's gonna be real time where these depressed young men are gonna be like, Siri, make me feel better. And then a picture will appear and she'll go, hey babe, how are you doing? You know I miss you. And then she'll start saying sex shit and the guy will get off to it.
It's so dystopian, bro.
We were
be
talking
no
about
real
like
person.
the Neuralink
So
stuff and the
dystopian.
Mark of the Beast actually last night.
It was a good conversation.
Real.
It's coming. It's coming.
So here's what I see having happened with dating. It used to be that 20-year-old guy, 20-year-old girl, both in college. 20-year-old guy goes to a party, 20-year-old girl goes to a party, they meet, they hang out, they hook up, maybe they start a relationship, maybe they get married, whatever. Dating apps come out. First it's websites like OkCupid. Now, 20-year-old guy, 20-year-old girl are hanging out, and they go to a party, and they meet. And she's like, he's cool. But then a 30-year-old guy slips into 20-year-old girl's DMs, and he's like, hey, what's up? You seem really cool. Why don't you come hang out in my loft and take a look at the lake with me sometime? And then she goes, oh, shit. Hey, sorry, dude, I got to go. It used to be that the 30-year-old guy with money, a job, a car, an apartment, and whatever, had no access or limited access to college girls. Now, because of dating apps, he has instant access. So these guys in college have zero access to these women. They have limited because how's a so here's what happens. Girls on OkCupid or on Tinder. She says, this guy's cute, swipe right. This guy's cute, swipe right. Bing, 2 messages appear. 20-year-old guy says, yo, you seem pretty cool. We should totally hang out. I go to UIC as well. She goes, yeah, totally, for sure. Me too. 30-year-old guy says, hey, you seem really cool. You should come hang out my loft sometime. It overlooks Lake Michigan. And then she's like, wow, that's really awesome. Then both message, what are you doing tonight? Are you free? And she says to both, I'm free. What's the plan? And the guy UIC says, come hang out at my dorm with me and my roommates. We're watching a scary movie. She goes, that's cool. Then the other guy goes, I'll pick you up in my convertible. We'll go out for dinner, and then we can go sit by the lake. And she goes, fuck yes. How is a young man supposed to compete with that? He can't.
Game.
Dating apps.
He's got to develop game.
I'm sorry, dude. It's like, yes, I can understand that.
He probably shouldn't have said, come hang out at my dorm with my friends.
But this is what college is. What's he supposed to say? We can sit on the roof.
All right, here's what I'll tell you.
No, listen. You can talk about game, but on average, a 20-year-old guy does not have the money a 30-year-old guy does.
No question.
Which means he's going to be making an offer to a girl, which is going to be dramatically lower than you could even have a 5'7" kind of squeaky 30-year-old guy, and the money and the wealth goes a long way. Now imagine this. Imagine the dude's actually got his own Cessna or jet or plane. He goes, ditch the little boys and fly my plane with me.
That's so rare, Tim. Like 30-year-old dudes with Cessnas or planes or whatever. That's so rare.
I'm giving you an extreme example. Yeah. But what I'm talking about is literally happening. It's a fact. The Washington Post talks about how
the chicks on the whatever podcast, like you've got like chicks like they're attractive, but they're not like extraordinary or anything. And they've got 20,000 followers. They've got NFL players and NBA players sliding into their DMs,
exactly.
Blue checks with like millions of followers.
How is a college guy supposed to build a relationship when he's competing with an NFL player?
Well, I mean, honestly, like if a college dude is looking for a relationship with a chick who's like having NFL players slide into her DMs, like that's probably not a girl that you want to be in a relationship.
No, you're wrong, bro. It's not about that. You see, that's an extreme example as well. Average 20-year-old woman gets 2 messages. One guy, let's say he's 26.
I think you think this is happening more often than it is. Because I know a lot of
reports about this.
I know. Yeah, but I also know a lot of dudes.
30% of dudes are 30 years old and virgins.
That's so gnarly.
Because they can't compete with older guys. The dating apps.
You said 30% of dudes are 30 years old and virgins.
Over 30, you mean?
They're like 30 so. A few years ago, the report was 29-year-old men on average a third of them were virgins. Had never had a substantial relationship or a sexual relationship.
Wow.
And it's because if you're 22, I'm not talking about NFL players. I'm not talking about slags who are like, I'm gonna get laid tonight. I'm talking about a regular, normal college-age girl, and a 28-year-old guy is like, I got a car. And she goes, cool. And the college guy says, I don't. And she goes, sorry, bro. Guy's got a car.
I mean, dude, I'll tell you this. I went through something similar when I was 19 years old. There was a girl that I was with. We had to break up because we were long distance. She moved 6,000 miles away. And there was a guy who was, I think, a couple years older than her, but he had a lot of money, a lot of resources, came from a rich family, you know, was opening a super nice clothing store in Amsterdam and stuff. And he swooped her right after we broke up, and it freaking broke my heart. But what I did when that happened to me is I was like, okay, this is just, it's human nature. It's like the rules of the jungle when it comes to dating. Women are hypergamous. They will pursue, you know, the best option that's available to them. That's just part of human nature.
And they should.
Well, the problem is when there's this illusion of endless hypergamy, endless options forever.
If I may finish my point, I just want to finish this. When that situation happened to me, it lit such a fire under my ass to never let anything like that happen to me again. And I just worked as hard on myself as a man as I possibly could to develop sovereignty in my life. And then I got to the point where I was like, I developed game, I developed confidence. Yes, I'm competing with dudes that are super wealthy and stuff, but like, I know who I am as a man. And when I'm talking to a girl, like I've got enough confidence talking to her to the point where Yeah, if a guy like that slides in and she's open to it and she's material and vapid like that, like it's like, okay, that's good for me to know up front. It's good for me to know up front that you're going to fall for a guy like that. But like, truly, if a guy has enough confidence and he treats a girl the way that, you know, she likes to be treated and she wants to be treated, and she views him as high value, regardless of him having a bunch of wealth and stuff like that, he's going to be able to keep her. And that's what guys have to do, you know?
So you have to be the best version of yourself possible.
Yes.
Because you're competing with shitheads who got money.
Yes, and you have to be realistic about the fact that those guys that you're describing are out there, and you are competing with them, and you kind of have to be detached from the outcome.
It doesn't change the fact about my point, though, that dating apps opened this door.
Yes, they do,
and completely changed the landscape.
Yes,
and what's happened now is there are some guys who don't have the ability to attain that next level, where they normally would have found a relationship, they can't anymore.
I disagree. I disagree. Every guy can work on himself to make himself the best version of himself.
Yes. And I'm saying sometimes the best version of a guy is a 5, not a 10.
So be it.
And so
be the best 5 you can be.
Exactly. And he's still going to be losing out because of these dating apps. Because the technology has changed the playing field in such a way, this guy normally would have had a much larger chance. I'm not saying.
Well, that's been all of human history. Like, most men haven't reproduced throughout human history because you've always had the chads. Like, nature is extremely harsh and selective.
Yes. And my point is, dating apps have just stretched that curve. And I think a huge component of why guys aren't having families and why women are sleeping around is because of these dating apps. Because guys can now send 1,000 messages to. They can swipe right. This is what guys do on Tinder. They just swipe right nonstop. Every single woman.
Yeah.
Because for women, they can swipe right on whoever they want and they will get a message. Men won't. They have to swipe right on every single one. And then finally, when it's like, you have a match, they'll go, she's ugly. Delete. Like, not good enough.
You know what the solution to the problem that you're describing is?
Meteor crashing into Earth and just vaporizing the atmosphere and wiping out all life as we know it. That would be a solution. If that would make the problem stop.
If that meteor is the best dating app ever made, yes, and that dating app is called base dating. See, here's the thing about something like Tinder. Chicks go on Tinder not to find a marriage or to find a really good relationship. They go on Tinder to find guys that want to have sex, and so they can get laid. That's who you've got on Tinder. Okay, chicks go on apps like that, and they're like, "How am I going to find a good guy here?" We're creating an app where people can align with people based specifically on their values. So if you're a girl looking for an awesome guy who you want to get married to, you're not going to find him on Tinder because Tinder is not optimized for that. It's optimized for sex. We're creating something where men can actually find women that are good women, and women can actually find men that are good men, because that's been the crazy thing that I've discovered over the past few weeks. Since those clips went viral, there was another clip that went viral. Did you see the one with me arguing with a girl about how I was going to make a woman my wife?
No.
Oh man. Yeah. This was on episode 28 of the Whatever podcast. I made this statement at some point, when I find the girl that I want to make my wife, and this chick is like, what do you mean make her your wife? She has a choice too, Her and I started arguing back and forth, and I was like, look, I don't want a girl who's wearing tiny dresses, going to the club, getting hit on by guys. I want a woman who doesn't want those things. I got so many messages from women after that who were like, holy crap, I didn't realize there are actually guys like you out there who don't just care about sex, but who actually want a wholesome woman. And I got so many dudes I had so many dudes that reached out to me, and they were like, bro, I didn't realize there were other dudes out there who actually cared about these same things. There's a lot of men and women out there who are looking for people with wholesome values, and they don't know where to find them. And it's not on Tinder. It's not on these other apps where people are meeting up for casual sex. We're creating a platform where those people can meet.
Are you saying that you want to make your dating app platform because the other ones that attract people of this mindset are based on religion? You think that there needs to be one that's not really specific to any type of religion?
Well, the best one I've seen is The Right Stuff. I went on The Right Stuff, and I went on Upward. The Right Stuff is for conservatives, Upward's for Christians and stuff. And for me, one of the biggest things when picking a wife is whether or not she's vaccinated. It's a really important component for me. That's a super important variable. And none of these.
Which one?
What do you mean?
You said unvaccinated?
Yeah, unvaccinated.
But what if she has a bunch of other ones?
I mean, if she got the ones that we get as kids, it's whatever, I got those too. But there's no dating apps that optimize for that. And there's so many people, or maybe they exist, but they have like 1,000 members. There's so
probably
many
ban
people.
If you mention
Like
it.
if you went on Tinder and said you were unvaccinated, they'd probably like fuck with you or something.
Yeah, the right stuff like kind of lets you like get into that a little bit, but like there's really no good ones that let you focus on that.
Well, the issue is probably that the Google Play Store will delete your app.
100%. So what we're doing, are you familiar with how Gab.com has their mobile app?
Yep.
Yeah, so you like open it in Safari, then add it to your home screen, functions as a native app.
And on Google, you can just download the APK.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah,
So if you have Android, you go to the website and click download, the app installs. That's why iPhone sucks ass.
JP, we need to look into that. I'm sure he probably knows how to do that. But yeah, that's our solution. But yeah, I don't know. The other apps, they're not that great.
I mean, look, I think a lot of these things are self-correcting problems. Liberals abort their kids and sterilize their kids. They're going to march. They're like lemmings. They'll march off the cliff if they're told to. So it's like, it kind of feels...
I don't know. There's so many single mothers out there raising
For sure.
dysfunctional kids who then turn into more single mothers, and
Yep.
they're
It's a
still going to
self-perpetuating
be
cycle.
they're still going to be reproducing.
If we got rid of all this socialist policy stuff, the problem wouldn't exist. It couldn't exist. It can only exist because we've created this like safety chamber. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we just start peeling back entitlements and welfare programs, then a lot of the stuff just stops.
I got a question for you. What do you think about like the central bank digital currencies and stuff that are coming?
I don't care as much as a lot of people think. Like they think it's the end of the world. You know, I think it's going to be bad.
You don't care if the federal government can just shut off your bank account?
They can do that right now, and they've done it. They do it to a lot of people.
It's easier. It's easier if it's centrally controlled, and they can just flip a switch. Like right now, they have to contact a bank and be like, "Hey, we want you to shut this down," and then the bank has to comply.
Right.
We're talking about like centrally controlled
it's
federal
bad.
digital dollar. You don't see that as a huge problem?
It is a huge problem.
Okay.
I'm just saying I don't think it's the apocalypse like a lot of people think it is. I think it's just a big problem. You know, so it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 6 or a 7, whereas people think it's a 10. They're like, I'm like, I know it's bad, but like they've already got extreme amounts of control as it is. This is a grain of sand in a bad direction. It's not, kill switch engage, right?
You know why people think it's the apocalypse though?
Was it? Because the mark of the beast.
Yeah, because the Bible prophesied that something like that would happen.
But it said that you'd have to have the mark of the beast to buy or trade, and that already exists. It's called the SWIFT payment system.
No, the SWIFT payment system does not get implanted on your wrist or on your forehead.
Yeah, but the CBDC isn't either.
Are you sure?
Yes.
What makes you so sure?
Why? So that's like saying, I could also hypothesize that the transfer mechanism will be on a balloon tied to your back that floats above you that you have to pull down and press to a machine. It's like equally nonsensical to make up a reason why they would do it that way. What's likely going to happen is...
But nobody's making up a reason that they would do it that way. They're explicitly telling us.
They've never said they're going to put it on your forehead or hand. That's never been a thing. In fact, have
you seen the clips of Klaus Schwab? There's like 3 of them at Davos saying, yes, we are going to have microchips implanted into your brains. And they're currently working on...
That's Neuralink. That's not putting something on someone's hand or forehead.
You're right. Well, who knows if it's going to interface with your forehead? We don't know. We don't know. But the
Probably
point...
the base of the neck.
I mean, if you look at Sweden, for example, they're implanting microchips in people's hands.
10 years ago, they
there.
did that. Verichip did that over 10 years ago, and it never took off because nobody wanted to get a chip implant. And because it caused problems for medical technology, things like MRIs. And so they keep trying to do this thing where they put the chip in your hand and you can like wave it and it'll pay your bills or whatever. And no one cares because your phone can already do all of that. So people talk about it's going to be on your hand or forehead. It's like, no, it's in your pocket right now, literally spying on you, tracking your every move. And you take your phone and you go, dude, you walk up to you can walk up to a 7-Eleven, take your phone and go boop and buy your shit with it. Not only that, they're already doing handprint at some Whole Foods where one time you scan your hand and it links it to your account. And then whenever you're buying stuff, you just boop your hand. Now, if you want to talk about the mark of the beast, there's no mark there, but at least your hand is making the purchase.
You know how I think they'll try and navigate it and execute it is I think that... Are you familiar with Event 201?
Vaguely. Elaborate.
So roughly a month prior to COVID-19 being released into the world, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Johns Hopkins University, and the World Health Organization staged a pandemic simulation event where they specifically simulated a coronavirus pandemic being released onto the population. And they were like, what would we do if this happened? And basically, In the simulation, they did exactly what they did in the actual pandemic, which is they had all of the heads of media and heads of state coordinate their messaging, push the population towards mandatory vaccines, and they just happened to stage this coronavirus pandemic simulation a month before the pandemic. I think it's because they absolutely knew that it was going to happen, and they intentionally released it on the population. Anyways, Bill Gates has made multiple statements in the past few years that there will be a second pandemic, and it will be bigger and deadlier and worse.
Biden did too.
Biden did as well, and they had leaders at the G20 summit say this as well.
Bird flu.
What'd you say?
Bird flu is already spreading. The news is already coming out. They already did the gain of function research, and it's got a 60% mortality rate.
Whoa. That's gnarly. Okay,
so H5N1, they did gain of function research starting in 2011. It was considered controversial. They were intentionally trying to make bird flu transmissible in mammals. They succeeded, and now we are seeing
who's they? Who's doing this research?
A university.
Was it funded by Fauci or?
I don't know if it was funded by Fauci. Let me pull up H5N1 gain of function. It was we've covered it quite a bit. It default auto searches. Fauci and Kawaoka. Science.org, controversial experimental gain of function research was being done. Let's see, where was it being done? I have this from science.org. They wanted to modify bird flu viruses so that it could infect humans. The U.S. government proposed 2 experiments at 2 labs. They don't say which labs, though. It was the NIH and the NIAID. Yep, they received one of the projects received funding from the NIH and the NIAID.
Was this
in Bethesda, Maryland? Okay. Holy shit, that's really close.
That's
Fuck
so
me.
gnarly. That's so gnarly. So yeah, they're doing stuff like that, and at this G20 summit where they said that there would be a second pandemic, Joe Biden and all these other world leaders signed a declaration of intent to agree to digital vaccination passports for the coming pandemic. Okay, so that same group that hosted Event 201. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Johns Hopkins University, World Health Organization, they just staged another pandemic simulation called Catastrophic Contagion. This was in October of 2022. It was for like a SEERS virus, like SEERS, a respiratory pandemic, another one, that specifically is more deadly for children and leaves them with like brain damage and paralysis and all this kind of stuff. They knew that.
Got it right here. It's from... Catastrophic Contagion, a Global Challenge Exercise, PDF.
Yep. It was basically the exact same thing that they did with Event 201, where they just magically predicted that there would be a second or a COVID-19 pandemic. They did this same kind of simulation. I believe this is coming probably within the next 2 to 5 years, and I believe that they will use this to push the digital vaccination passport system, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that they're going to use these pandemics in order to push technologies that will digitally verify, biometrically verify whether or not people have been vaccinated so that they can regulate travel and all of that kind of stuff. That's how I think they're going to push some sort of implant system.
If there is a 60% mortality rate virus sweeping across the planet, would you take the vaccine?
That's a very loaded question.
60%
is the vaccine like the COVID vaccines were? Is it rushed production?
No idea. I don't want to I think the contents or whatever you think about COVID is irrelevant to if we are watching people drop dead. 60% of people you know, getting sick and then like vomiting and dying in a matter of days. And they come to you and say, trust us, take this vaccine or you will die. Would you take it?
No.
That's it. There you go. That's your answer.
Yeah.
Nothing more to add to it. Just this question.
No. Would you?
I don't know. It's tough. We talked about this on IRL because if it was airborne Ebola, would you take it? There's an airborne Ebola virus spreading rapidly, liquefying your insides and making you vomit black goo. And they say, this is the vaccine for it. You will die unless you get it.
And it's mRNA.
I don't know. I don't think that matters.
It does.
Because absolutely
matters.
Because you don't know
absolutely matters.
It doesn't because you're not an immunologist, a vaccinologist. You have no idea what these things are.
What, the vaccines?
Like when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, I'm prescribing you flabbergastabop. Do you go, whoa, hold on there a minute. I know exactly what you're talking about because I read online. No, you go, thanks, doc. But when it comes to mRNA, there's a political contagion where it's like people are like, well, I know what mRNA means. And I heard a guy on the internet say it's bad. That's why I'm saying it doesn't matter what they call it. And if they know that people are going to be like mRNA bad, then they're going to call it something different. And they're going to say, no, this is a QFC vaccine.
Look, here's my problem with it is like, I'm not a fan of anyone trying to force some rushed developed therapy with brand new technology onto me that could have long-term health implications that might make me infertile, all that kind of stuff.
Not my question.
Yeah, but all of that factors into it.
I didn't say they forced it on you. Said they told you, if you take this, otherwise you'll die. Would you take it?
You'll die of the disease or at the hands of the government because they're executing you?
Let's go.
No, the disease will kill you.
That's the question.
I said quite literally, they're not forcing you to take it.
So they're not rounding us up and putting us into quarantine camps if we reject it?
The question is simply this. Bird flu hits. 60% of people are dying. And then they say, if you want it, it's here.
Yo, I'm taking my wife and kids and we're jetting to the mountains.
Yeah. And just go live in the mountains and then...
You can't fly.
What?
You can't fly without it.
So you won't be able to fly.
I mean,
and so what will likely end up happening is the people who are vaccinated or survive it will be immune, and it may then spread to the human population, but you will never be able to make contact because you don't have immunity unless you want to take that basically 2-to-1 chance of dying.
Bro, I'm already preparing for this, man. Like I see biblical prophecies about the end times coming true all around us. There's so many of them with like almost perfect precision fulfillment.
Like what else?
Well, the mark of the beast one, we can get into that. We were talking about it last night. There's some crazy stuff going on with that.
The issue with that is, with the mark of the beast...
Wait, hold on. I'm already preparing myself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially to literally be cut off from civilization. Because the Bible, I see all this biblical prophecy coming true. What'd you say?
I said we're half doing that too.
Yeah, we are. And I see all this biblical prophecy coming true, and it says the Antichrist will rise, and anybody who doesn't worship him is getting cut off from the global economy. I'm like, okay, check. Everybody who gets the mark of the beast is going to hell. That's what the Bible tells us. I will never get that, so I'm mentally preparing myself
the problem
to
with
be
this
cut
is
off.
You can go back every decade and find people saying exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
In the exact same way.
For sure.
So it's like...
But you can't go back every decade and find companies filing patents like Microsoft filed in April of 2020.
Which one?
You're not claiming that the COVID-19 vaccine is the mark of the beast.
No,
but
I'm
what
not.
you're saying is like it's a precursor or a warning.
It's
or
the
a
COVID
step,
vaccine.
An incremental.
It was
step.
like a prototype. It was like a cultural prototype for the mark, in a sense. I'm not saying that the COVID vaccine is the mark of the beast. I'm saying they use this problem reaction solution paradigm to test how people are going to respond to tyrannical mandates, to see whether or not people will accept them or if they'll reject them. And they're using all of this, these pandemics, the solutions to them, they're using all of this to push us towards a new world order system.
You know why?
Yeah, because they want to do it.
Well,
Why?
Why do they want to do it?
Why do they want to do it? Are you asking me?
Yeah,
because you know the answer?
I do know the answer.
What's the answer?
They're trying to invoke the return of Christ. They're intentionally fulfilling the prophecy.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Right, that's actually what many of them are doing.
Who are they?
Davos Group, World Economic Forum types.
Okay.
So they're international elements that are Christian that believe in order to invoke the return of Christ, you need to fulfill the prophecy intentionally.
You think they're Christian, or do you think that they're Satanists who understand the power of Christ?
They're Christians.
So like when I look at Jacob
Not
Roth,
all of them. You know, not every person involved in various businesses that are implementing various international programs believe this, but there are a lot of very powerful, wealthy people who have talked about how the intent is to fulfill the prophecy. Here, the thing though is,
I didn't realize you had this aspect to you. This is exciting. I like this.
Like reading shit online all day, every day.
No, well, I mean that what you just described could be considered a serious conspiracy theory that they're intentionally trying to bring about the fulfillment of
There
Revelation.
are a small handful of people that have talked about fulfilling prophecy, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's like a rich guy said he was doing it. Like I'm not saying he's correct. I'm not saying it will work, and I'm not saying that Pfizer or Moderna are doing it for those reasons. I'm saying there are people who are like, ooh, if I help do this, then it might make Christ come back. And I'm kind of like, yeah, that dude's crazy because that's not. But here's the other thing too. I've read a bit about Revelation. I've read a bit about what it is, and there are many people who believe it was simply a prediction of literally the government at the time of the writing of the Bible, so that it was not this story about how in several thousand years these things will happen. It was literally talking about what was happening. So these things had happened, and they wrote them.
There's people who make that argument, however.
And think about this too. To a person who grew up in a world where you could walk, there were no laws, there were no rules, outside of the city limits, banditos existed, and you could trade anything for anything. Then one day, the Caesar comes to you and says, you can only use these coins for trade that have my mark on them. And they go, the mark. He's saying we can't trade unless we use the mark. To them, that was a mark. To us, we have Visa and MasterCard imprinted on all the cards in our wallet. And that's what you have to use. Discover barely works anywhere. So based on how you interpret what the mark of the beast is, we are marked to shit already with everything. And you can't have a bank account unless you have a social security number. So I can argue the mark of the beast came 70 years ago. To a person who didn't have a social security number, they're going, the government is going to mark us with a number and we can't buy or trade or work unless we have it. Bro, the mark of the beast was almost 100 years ago.
So I've heard that argument. Here's the problem with that argument. The Bible describes all of this being executed by one individual called the son of perdition. Okay, he's prophesied in the book of Daniel, the book of Revelation, the book of Thessalonians. It is an individual who is going to be one of the most charismatic leaders the world has ever seen. There are people who believe that. And there's an interesting case to be made for it. Shout out Donnie Darkened on Twitter. Very interesting account. He's going to be a very charismatic leader. He's going to be an economic genius, a military genius. He's going to have a distinct physical appearance, and he's going to speak great blasphemies against God.
So Trump.
I don't know about the blasphemy. Has Trump done that?
Shout out Donnie Darken.
No, and he's not a military genius either.
He's not a genius.
Well, you could make the case that he does have military genius. You look at his foreign policy.
Abraham Accords.
Abraham Accords, which also interestingly is fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
And there was that one time he was at that rally and he said, "I am the Lord your God, the return of the Messiah," and that was pretty surprising.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
I'm kidding. Then there's, never said that.
But there are like, dude, people have had billboards where like they call Trump like the anointed one, the son of God. There's like books that call him the Messiah. There's
even
all sorts
Christian
of crazy
art
stuff.
where Jesus is like crowning Trump or like watching over Trump in the Oval Office. Have you seen that stuff?
No, I haven't. And have you ever seen the painting at the Denver airport? Have you guys seen the paintings
of
the
course.
Denver?
Yeah.
Have you seen the one where all of the countries are handing over their swords to be destroyed by the little blonde boy in the middle?
With the iron fist.
Yeah,
he has an iron fist he's raising up.
He looks like a little blonde, like boy version of Trump. It's kind of weird.
So Trump was always the answer, and Biden is the problem reaction solution to get us to vote to reelect Trump.
Well, you know, we were talking about this last night. You know what's interesting about the whole Trump Antichrist angle? I'm not saying I believe Trump is the Antichrist, but there's interesting theories around it. It was Aleister Crowley, I believe Jack Parsons, possibly L. Ron Hubbard as well. They did a magic ritual, a sex magic ritual called the Moonchild Ritual, which was intended to bring into incarnation the Antichrist in human form.
Did it work?
Well, they performed this ritual, and the following full moon was Trump a blood moon, and Donald Trump was born.
No, and then say the rest. Say the rest.
I believe, I might be off on the numbers, but I believe after that as well, it was 911 days after that, the nation of Israel was founded, and the Antichrist has a strong connection to the nation of Israel, biblically speaking.
As does Trump.
As does Trump.
Oh, boy.
And on top of that...
Biden 2024.
And on top of that, he was born 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days prior to being inaugurated President of the United States. On top of that as well, him and Jared Kushner signed the Abraham Accords. And
what is this Twitter account you're talking about?
Donnie Darkened.
Donnie Darkened?
Yes. Yes, it's very fascinating stuff to look into. There's so many data points. Okay, I will.
He lives on the 66th floor of Trump Tower.
So Trump,
does he really?
Trump says he lives on the 66th floor of Trump Tower, but there's only 58 floors to Trump Tower.
When did he say that? I don't know that.
It's like fact check all of this. Look into all of this. I'm just repeating what I've heard.
Let me read it. Donald Trump is the chosen Antichrist. They have been foreshadowing this for centuries. Here is the proof. Read pinned thread before interacting with my profile.
Oh.
Bro, I'm going to get so much hate on Twitter.
Sort of like that profile that thinks John Benet Ramsey was like
wait. It's better. It's better. It says 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days after Trump's birth, he would be inaugurated as the 45th president of the United States. 7 months after his inauguration, the Great American Eclipse would occur on August 21st, 2017, and would divide the U.S. in half in a 7-year period. And then it shows the two different solar eclipses crossing 2017 and 2024, April 8th, 2024.
I believe they also, like, the paths, it also went over, like, multiple towns that were called Salem, which is short for Jerusalem, which is, you know, the Bible says that the Antichrist will rule the world from Jerusalem. on top of that as well, like another interesting data point. So like Jared Kushner purchased.
Dude, do you know what Donald Trump means in, I think it's Scottish Gaelic?
What?
Herald of the world ruler.
Really?
No joke.
Really?
Donald Trump literally, Donald means the ruler of the world, and Trump means to trumpet. And so it literally means the beckoning sound of the ruler of the world.
So he could possibly be the false prophet.
He could. Donnie Darkened thinks that Elon Musk might be the false prophet.
Well, he's claiming
I don't
Trump
know.
means the usurping ace. I looked this up because people were saying Donald means leader of the world, but Trump comes from the trumpet sound. Like it means, bah-bah.
Yeah.
So it's like they're heralding in the world ruler. It's the herald of the world ruler.
Well,
So it could be Baron Trump.
So check this out. So this is where it starts to get really interesting. And again, I'm not convinced that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. I think that it's a very, very interesting angle. But I personally believe transhumanism will be a big part of like all of the end time stuff. Like what you were talking about, people merging their consciousness.
Oh shit!
with
Trump did say I'm the chosen one.
Yeah, he did.
What?
Yeah.
Dollars. I am the chosen one.
Yeah.
Wait, look.
China's made $500 billion. 500 billion. Ripped it out of the United States. And not only that, if you take a look, intellectual property theft. Add that to it. And add a lot of other things to it. So somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. So I'm taking on China.
I remember when this came out, and to be fair, he's making a joke. And for people to take that and be like, he's proclaiming he's the Messiah or something, it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
He was like, somebody to take on China. Nobody would do it. I'm the chosen one. I guess I have to.
Well, and the other, like I've hosted a few Twitter spaces with Donnie about this, Donnie Darkin, to try and hear his perspective on it. And one of the reasons why I push back on this theory is because the Bible explicitly tells us that the Antichrist will speak great blasphemies against God and he will elevate himself above God. And Donald Trump has specifically said, like, he's made very positive statements about Jesus Christ, saying, God gave his son for the salvation of the world. You think it's barren?
Barron hasn't said anything.
I know, he's too young. Donald Trump means the herald of the world ruler. It does not mean the world ruler himself.
So you think it might be barren?
Barron literally references Baron, like he is the Baron. You know what I mean? So I don't actually think anything of it. But I would say Donald Trump means herald of the world ruler. And he has brought forth, it could be Don Jr., but Baron literally is a word that means like ruler, like, you know, and world ruler in Donald is different from what a baron is. A baron could be a negative thing, you know, like an oil baron could be a bad guy who controls things with force. Baron Trump.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I think.
Do you know about the Ingersoll Lockwood books?
Yes. That's some crazy stuff, man.
They said that Baron Trump lived on Fifth Avenue and the socialists and communists came from the Lower East Side and rioted at his building.
Time travel stuff.
Yeah, dude.
Well, what's interesting about that too is Jared Kushner purchased an office building at 666 Fifth Avenue in New York City. And then on top of that as well, you can find information online. People say that there was a company that was headquartered there at 666 Fifth Avenue that was called Lucent Technologies. And apparently a couple decades ago, they were manufacturing RFID chips to be implanted into the human body. And then you add on top of that as well, Jared
At that
Kushner.
address.
At that address,
Okay.
yes. Which is a strange coincidence. On top of that as well, Jared Kushner is on record saying that he is an advocate and supporter of transhumanism, and he might be part of the first generation that never has to die.
Donald Trump's famous 666 hand gesture. That's a new one. The hand sign,
people
666.
Always, I don't know if I buy into that. But the transhumanism angle when it comes to the end times, I think to me, that's the one that I look out for the most, because I believe that the promise of the Antichrist will be basically Neuralink and transhumanism. Hey, if you get this stuff implanted into your body, you'll be able to live forever and you'll have godlike intelligence.
Yep.
Right? That's the promise of transhumanism. That is the exact same promise that the serpent gave to Eve in the garden when he tempted her with the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He said, surely you will not die. God is just trying to hide this godlike knowledge from you. Just take it and then you'll be like God, right? That's what Satan...
He said, you will become one of us.
Is that what he said?
Something like that.
Yeah. And God was like God at that moment in time is like, yo, like we have Adam and Eve that are living in rebellion to me. They can't continue to eat of the fruit of tree of life because they'll be in eternal rebellion to me with godlike knowledge, that's like a disaster waiting to happen, right? And you look at that temptation in the garden, it's the exact same temptation with transhumanism.
Okay, so realistically, when transhumanism starts like gaining traction, isn't it still only going to be accessible to the super rich, and that's how they would want it to stay?
So that's a great question. I don't think so, because of Microsoft's patent. I think that
060606, that patent.
April 26th of 2020, Microsoft was awarded an international patent for a device that connects to your body. It reads all of your biometric data, and in exchange for your biometric data, it gives you access to cryptocurrency.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Prophecy of the Mark of the Beast.
Yep.
What does it say? Something that connects to your body, lets you buy, sell, and trade, and the number of the mark is 666. This patent that Microsoft was awarded had the international patent number 060606. And I called a patent attorney about this because I was like, dude, how did they get this patent number? What is happening here? This is pretty spooky. He told me that that number would have been randomly assigned to Microsoft for this patent by international patent offices.
It is W02020060606A1.
W2020, that's the year designator. The 060606, that's the specific
A1.
patent number.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so I asked a patent attorney about it, Tim. He said that patent number would have been randomly assigned to Microsoft, which tells me one of two things. This is either divine fulfillment of biblical prophecy, or there's Satanists working at Microsoft that bribed people at international.
Just LARPers.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I don't know. We're going to start to wind it down, I guess. But do you have any like concluding thoughts on that whole arc of Satanism or whatever? I mean,
yeah, Jesus Christ. There's abundant evidence that Jesus Christ was a real person who actually resurrected from the dead and is actually the Son of God.
is he coming back?
He's absolutely coming back. If people want to find out more about that, I was an atheist. I became a Christian after I read a book called More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell. It basically lays out, this book was written by a guy who tried to disprove Christianity. And in the process of trying to disprove it, he realized all of the evidence was in favor of it being true. He lays out all the evidence in the book. I read it, realized that it's irrefutable, in my opinion, that Jesus Christ is actually the Son of God, became a Christian. I would just encourage everybody, turn to Christ. He offers you eternal life, and in the forgiveness of your sins and faith and belief in him, you can have eternal life, and that'll be very important to hold on to in the years ahead. So,
You want to shout anything out before we wrap up?
yeah, I just want to shout out the Brahs and the Brah HQ, my boys. Love you guys. I want to shout out getbased.org. If you guys are interested in based pros and based dating, you can sign up there. And follow me on Twitter at Sovereign Brah. And I just want to thank you for your time, bro.
Yeah, thanks for
This is
hanging
an
out,
honor.
man.
Yeah.
Mary, you want to shout anything out?
Sure. My Instagram and Twitter are both Mary Archived. I've been getting a big response to my clips from the Whatever podcast. So thank you. You've been a part of that. If you've supported me after that, yeah, it's been wild. And I'm glad I got to talk to you, Chase.
Yeah, me too. This is awesome. I also want to shout out Brian Atlas. Thank you for having me on the show, opening up all these opportunities. And for everybody who's following me on Twitter and like praying for me and offering support, I just want to thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. So.
And for everybody, if you made it this far, we got a Discord that's officially up. You can hang out and have academic conversations on these issues because we don't want to get banned from Discord, but we want to have some contentious conversations. Become a member at timcast.com, join the Discord, and then share your ideas. And we're going to start utilizing this community for the content we produce, so guest suggestions and things like that. You can follow me at Timcast, and thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all next time.
Right on.